Hello, hello. Yeah, now it's good. Okay. So this yesterday we had this internet failure, and so you all have done the video recording, and that we have put on this archived website. We have linked it on this page here. Semester 4. So 7 students were able to give online presentation, which is here, and all other students have done the video recording, which is made available here, okay, from your YouTube channels. Okay. So many of you had not uploaded any of the videos on your YouTube channel, except some of you had only one or two only. Not you have not participated in Teachers' Day also. So even that video was not available. But now, at least we can say that everybody has their YouTube channel. You know how to upload on YouTube channel also. So we can claim that 100% students of our department, they have YouTube channel, and they know it. This skills they are aware about, how to do a quick video shooting of a small presentation where a digital board is in the background, and you quickly shoot and quickly upload the raw video and start sharing also. So it takes 15 minutes to do the work. But in academia, many teachers are still not aware about these simple skills also. But now we can say today that all of our students, otherwise many of you were running away when some tasks are given about studio activities. Some of you were running away and not doing the work. Even Teachers' Day you have not done, or other studio activities also. But yesterday we got a good opportunity, and everybody from this batch, 100% uploaded and had worked on this. Okay, so today we hope that internet will work. In the morning we had still some problem with the internet, and in case we face any problem in between, then again we'll have to switch over to that plan B. So mentally be ready for the plan B also. But we hope it will work and we'll be able to complete the things there. So stick to your time so we can complete it in time. Otherwise, it will be beyond 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. So take 8 to 10 minutes to present, and quick questions and answers at the end of the presentations also. So today we have these presenters who will make presentations on these topics. We will start with Unnati, and that will be on the past that never leaves, love, loss, and the burden of memory in Barnes's novel, The Only Story. You can say directly in not the Barnes, with the proper names, the is not used. In Julian Barnes's apostrophe S, The Only Story. Remove the other words. The another one will be by Asha on reconstructing the past. Memory and subjectivity in Julian Barnes's The Only Story. Rahul's will be on exploring intertextuality and literary echoes in Julian Barnes's The Only Story. Pallavi's presentation will be on from worship to warning. Mansa Devi's journey from religious devotion to climate symbolism. Kusum's will be on the Anthropocene novel, Amitav Ghosh's. Title is not proper. What you want to do, you just have put some words there. So give a appropriate title to your presentation. You can say a study. You need to reorganize the entire the Anthropocene novel, Amitav Ghosh's Gun Island. A study of Gun Island as an Anthropocene novel. Something like that. Make an appropriate title. Where is Kusum? Okay. Priyanshiba on politics of subaltern consciousness, the substantive representation of the margins in Nehru's Toward Freedom, and Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness. Okay. This sounds very heavy and interesting. Whether you will be able to carry out the presentation or not, it will be interesting to see. Trupti's will be on interconnected operation, exploring ecofeminism and marginalized identities in the Ministry of Utmost Happiness. Jai's will be on trauma and storytelling in Arundhati Roy's Ministry of Utmost Happiness. Hemali will read on where happiness lingers, Queer Resistance and Memories in Arundhati Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness. Now, ChatGPT is helping you to give very poetic titles. But will your presentation stand up to the title or not? That we will have to check. Jatin will make it on Between Fiction and Journalism. Can the Ministry of Utmost Happiness be read as a political archive? Divya's on Navigating the Ecosphere. Ecological awareness in Amitav Ghosh's The Hungry Tide and the Gun Island. Why has that come in between? You have changed the title or it should come together? Yes? Have you changed? No, otherwise, it should go with the Gun Island presentations. Or it is, it's coming in between. Okay, then next one will be Khushi's on From Coaching Centers to Capital Crimes, a comparative study of Revolution 2020 and the White Tiger. Jai's will be on From Dreams to Disillusionment, a critical look at the Indian education system in Revolution 2020. And the last one will be by Ria on Education, Corruption and Power in Vatayan, The Hunter and Revolution 2020. Okay. So let us start with the first one. Unnati, you can start with your presentation.
So, hello everyone. Hello everyone. I'm Unnati Barolia, and today I'll be dealing with the topic The Past That Never Leaves, Love, Loss, and the Burden of Memory in Barnes' novel, The Only Story. This is my personal information, my research question. That is, what are the psychological and emotional consequences of living with unresolved memories in the novel? And how does Julian Barnes portray memory as both a source of comfort and a burden in The Only Story? My hypothesis that how Julian Barnes, The Only Story, suggests that memory is not a neutral record of the past, but a reconstructed and often distorted narrative that shapes identity and emotional perceptions. Through the lens of an unreliable narrator, the novel portrays first love as both idealized and doomed, demonstrating that love, once lost, becomes an inescapable burden. Ultimately, the novel argues that closure remains ambiguous as memory continuously reshapes the past, making complete acceptance and understanding elusive. This is my table of content. And yes, the introduction. Julian Barnes is a renowned contemporary novelist known for his intricate narratives and exploration of human emotions in his 2012 novel, The Only Story. He dwells into the complex emotional landscape of memory. Barnes employs an unreliable narrator and a shifting narrative perspective to highlight the subjective nature of memory, how it reshapes, distorts, and even filters painful truths. The novel raises questions about whether we remember events as they truly happened or as we need them to be. As Paul reconstructs his past, the only story ultimately suggests that love and loss are inextricably linked, and memory, rather than bringing closure, often depends on the emotional burden of the past. Yes, so the first one is that is the purity and complexity of the first love. Uh, Yes, infatuations and societal obstacles. That Paul's initial infatuations with Susan MacLeod was marked by an age gap and societal disapproval. Yes, we know that how was the age gap between the Susan and the Paul, and the novel captures the transformation and potentially destructive nature of youthful love. That how Paul was a youth and how he find the love without that filter between them. Idealized versus real. The early love was portrayed as intense and idealized, fueled by youthful exuberance and a shared sense of adventures, that how it was in the very beginning. And however the relationship progressed, the realities of their personalities and lives clashed, eroded the initial romantic ideas. Yes, the burden of memory, living with the past, that the weight of the past continues to define Paul's present. Memories of Suzanne and their relationship haunt him, shaping his outlook on life and relationships. The novel explores the difficulties of recolonizing idealized memories with the realities of their shared history. Okay, so he couldn't save her, and so he had to save himself. It was as simple as that. And this is the only story because it is the only one that matters. The themes of regret is central to the novel, as the past continues to exert its influence on Paul's life, creating a constant sense of unease and a longing for what could have been. Okay, loss and disillusionment, the erosion of love's idea. Factors contributing the decline, that how their story was like into the decline when Suzanne was addicted to the alcohol, and their shared life became strained as their love for each other dwindled. Characters development, Paul's perspective evolved from infatuating to a deeper understanding of Suzanne's struggle and his own limitations. This transformation marks a significant aspect of his character development, highlighting the complexities of commitment and acceptance in long-term relationships. Long-term in sense that when Paul has left the city for his further studies at that time. And okay, yes, the unreliable narrator, a memory as a filter. The novel is narrated by Paul, yes, reflecting on his past. This first person perspective exposes the inherent subjectivity and potential unreliability of memory. The story is filtered through Paul's biases, regrets, and the selective recollections. The novel moves from first person emotional involvement and the second person detachment, and finally the third person, that is complete distance, reflecting Paul's changing perspective of his past. This structural shift illustrates how memory evolves over time, often becoming unreliable as emotions fade and regret takes over. Barnes emphasizes that memory is is a construct rather than an objective record. The reader is challenged to question the accuracy of Paul's memory and how the shape is understanding of the past. Okay, so the ambiguity of closure, acceptance, and understanding. That the novel questions conclusion leaves us to as a reader that with a sense of ambiguity, that Paul attempts to make sense of his life and relationship, grappling with the lasting impact of his past. And while there is a suggestion of acceptance and understanding, the past still holds him captive. The open ended nature of the conclusion leaves room for the interpretations, raising questions about whether true closure is ever truly possible. Like, yes. And the conclusion, Julian Barnes, the only story, explores the lasting impact of love, loss, and the memory on personal identity through Paul's idealized first love and its eventual disillusionment. The novel highlights how memory reshapes the past, sometimes as a burden and sometimes as a means of understanding. In the end, the novel offers no clear resolution, suggesting that love and its consequences never truly fades. Instead, Paul is left with a story that defines his life, proving that the past, especially one shaped by love, remains an enduring force in our like in his consciousness. Yes. So, talking about my learning outcomes, evaluate the impact of a first love, understanding the role of a memory and identity, and what personally I feel is like the memory of past, even uh, like emotionally, if we are connected to a particular thing, then personally I feel that it's not easy to like forget the attachment. Emotional attachments are not easy to forget. So yes, this is what I learned and these are my references. So thank you. Now I'm open for questions if anybody.
Yes, so Unnati, my question to you is why does Paul continuously revisit his past? Huh. Unnati, my question to you is why does Paul continuously revisit his past?
Okay. So, uh, what I can say over here is me because he is like understanding and justifying his own choice over here. So his like visiting to the like mental asylum or hospital where Suzanne was admitted and was checking on Suzanne. Like yes, so on that base I can yes that
So Unnati, my question is from your view of looking the novel. What message does the novel convey about the memory and the close?
okay. So about the memory and the closure, what I feel is yes, the memory of the past never fades, and yes, that is the only reason like why Paul and Suzanne at the end also Paul is much more concerned and yes, what I feel in that case. Thank you.
You are changing the topic. Hmm? Because we make a schedule likewise, text wise schedule we make. So suddenly, if you make a change, then you have to inform. So last night, I think 1 o'clock, you changed the topic. Hmm? So this we can. We can see version history, that who is edited at what time. Hmm? So here we see your topic. The Chetan Bhagat story is a mirror to modern. That was at 12:30. Then at 1 o'clock, you came to change the topic. This blue color highlight. So this way, this helps us. નહીંતર લોકો તો માને જ નહીં કે ના મારો તો આ જ ટોપિક હતો, મેં તો બદલો જ નથી, કે તમારી ભૂલ હશે. મારી તો ભૂલ જ ન હોય. So this, when you share the spreadsheet in Google group, then people have to log in to edit. Why we do that? એ આના માટે કરીએ કે તમે લોગિન કરો, ગ્રુપમાં મેમ્બર હો તો જ તમે એડિટ કરો, તો જ પકડી શકાય કે કોણે કેટલા વાગે એડિટ કર્યું છે. When you share in WhatsApp open link, you can't check that. વોટ્સએપમાં જે મોટે ભાગે બધા શેર કરતા હોય છે કમિટી મેમ્બર્સ, તો આવું ક્યારેક થાય ત્યારે તમારી પાસે સાબિતી ન રહે કાંઈ, તમે સાચા પેલા સાચા, એ પછી એમને આરોપ ઉપર આરોપ નાખવામાં આવે એકબીજા ઉપર કે હું સાચો કે હું સાચી, પણ કોઈને ખબર ન પડે કોણ સાચું. આમાં ના ન પાડી શકાય કે કેટલા વાગે કોણે આવી અને શું એડિટ કર્યું છે એ નામ સાથે એ જોઈ શકાય ત્યાં. Okay, next you can start. Yeah.
Hello everyone, myself Asha Rathod. So I'm deal with the topic reconstructing the past, memory and subjectivity in the Julian Barnes The Only Story. These are my hypothesis and research question. The introduction of the novel, it was published on 1st February 2018 and genre of psychological fiction connected with memory, past and love. So, memory and subjectivity. The issue of temporal point of view, retrospect, is key here. Paul is, as he tells us, revisiting, and he admits inevitability if unintentionally revising and revisioning personal history and emotional experience is he is a not retrospective vantage point out tranquility, and his distance does not clarity. So Paul's uses shifting narrative that reflecting his past and then present uh, and you understand. I hope I am telling you everything as I remember it. I never kept a diary, and most of the participants in my story, my life, are either dead or fast disappeared. Memory shorts and shifts according to the demands made on it by the remember. Julian Barnes' novel, The Only Story, can be read as a monograph on the complication of love. Uh, Memory sorts and shift according to the demands made on it by the remember. Uh, do we have access to the algorithm of its priorities? Probably not, but I would guess that memory priorities whatever is most useful to help keep the barrier of those memories going. So where would be a self interest in bringing happier memory to the surface? Paul, here Paul is unreliable narrator. We can't rely on them. He can add her past and the memory also. And the purpose of this story is to achieve something in fiction that he could not in reality. He also questioned that it was real or not. However, when his illusions are shattered under the effect of his reconstructing memory, he finds it impossible to achieve a unity or sense of wholeness with his beloved. He retried his story to himself so that he might understand his experience better. He is mostly remembered and even fictionalization whenever his memory fails him. His past experience when he was in early 20s. So he in the there are three part. In the beginning part, he tells a story when he was in the 19. That story of a boy met a girl, and in middle party he find that his relationship with Susan, like how become alcoholism, and ending part with that his regret to Susan's struggle. In the part, Paul shared with us not only what he experienced, but what he thinks about his experience. uh, Dipesh Chakravarti has also given the appropriate phrase that is a trauma is a memory in his book titled as a habitation of modernity, essay in the wake of subaltern study, as very phrase can be allowed in the character study of Susan McLeod, especially when he narrates his bitter experience with her uncle Humphrey, when he lives with her uncle Humphrey, and her past with his how being abused by him. So here are one quote of that Susan's live with his uncle and abuse with him. How she feels that I had an uncle Humphrey. I had an Uncle for Humphrey. I used to go and stay with him and Aunt Florence after my mother's died. So this is also showing that psychological perspective on memory. When exploring memory within cognitive psychology, cognitive study means mental and brain study, that several psychological study that Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, Jean Piaget, Jacques Lacan, and William James that devoted that extensive research to understanding human behavior and complexity of memory. In his seminal work of interpretation of dreams, Freud examined the uh, in, interac- uh, intricate connection between memory, dreams, and working of the human mind. He Freud asserts that the entire memory of the dreams is open to an objective calculated to depreciate its value very markedly in critical eyes. One may doubt whether our memory, which omits so much from the dreams, does not falsify what is retained. The perception that come to us leave a trace in our psychic approach, which we may call a memory trace. Narrative perspective on memory, that Janet viewed that the memory system as the central organization mechanism of the mind, responsibility for categories and integrating experience into expedition and adaptable meaning structures. Julian's suggests that memory operate with a degree of self-perspection. We can add and we cannot rely on memory, that on some memory are unforgettable, that we can't forget it but I would guess that memory prioritizes whatever is most useful to help keep the barrier of those memories going. So there would be a self interest in bringing happier memories to the surface first. But again, I am only guessing. So both memory and narrative serve as technical concept across disciplines such as psychology, linguistic, and communication, history, and literary study. Each carry distance yet overlapping meaning, and both are constructed memory of what is perceived as the same event can shift over time. Oral tradition and the art of memory. The oral storytelling is arguable the most fundamental form of narrative. That one primary mode of such narration occurs in everyday conversation. Children recount their school experience to parents, that how we are uh, spend all day. That why while grandparents share what time memory with grandchildren. However, distinct from these everyday narratives is a epic tradition, a significant mode of oral storytelling from Homer's Iliad, which Milman Parry described as a rooted in oral poetics, to the numberless epics of a pre-literated society that were never transcribed. These narrative often center around a shared mythical past, heroic battles, and grand deeds. The purpose of memory narration in a postmodernist writer, purpose of bringing memory narrative into literary authorship can be from the rigidly conservative minds of the readers and spectators into the doubting and questioning minds, which can prove for the truth rather than relying on just what comes as ancient scripture and holy text. This can be seen in context of Indian Vedic knowledge system, like where is based on division in scripture, and one part is to constitute of Shruti and likes Vedas, whereas another constitute its part by Smriti. As the statement, that language bears within itself the necessity of its own critique. From the base of deconstruction concept that originally by Jacques Derrida, it can be taken to probe through the text become access in order to get clear perspective. In conclusion, that Julian Barnes, the only story, explored the memory as a selective and reconstructing process that shapes revised over time, influenced by emotion and bias, drawing from psychological and narratological perspective. The novel highlight memory's unreliability as seen as Susan McLeod trauma and Paul's shifting understanding of love, and in a modernist context, memory narrative challenge absolute truth, blurring the lines between reality and fiction. So ultimately, the novel critiques romantic idealism, portraying love as a complex, culturing influence experience. Here are my learning outcome that I learned that memory is not always reliable, but shaped by emotion and time. I realized the importance of questioning personal recollecting and perception. I understood that love is not just an emotion, but influenced by society and psychological factors. I gained insight into how storytelling helps in making sense of past experience. And I now see that memory can both heal and destroy affection, how we understand our own life. These are my references. So thank you. Now you can ask questions.
Okay, so Asha, how does memory influence the narrative structure of the only story, and how does it impact the protagonist's perception of his past and present relationship?
So, in the only story, memory play a role, a very big role that Paul's understanding of love, and he see first that his relationship with Susan, that he see firstly that his relationship with Susan is joyful, and but at the time passes, he also see the painful also, that memory is a memory is shaping him, that how it changes, that buying get older, that he understanding the how memory shape him, and it is regret about Susan's. So this.
Asha, can you please throw some light on what role does trauma play in memory as depicted in the only story?
So, trauma play in a memory, that in this only story, we can get example that Susan, that how Susan's past, that he stay with her the uncle, and abused by him, and how effect on on her, that how he feels now, that, and so this trauma effect on that, how, and in thinking of, and his love also, and as some memory are that deeper influence on it, that we can be distorted, and facing a problem, that so central trauma memory is a like a more make a memory is a more powerful, and how we can see our lives, and around world also, and shaping, we can understand that how memory shape us, and we how can we see our past also. So this is from my side. Thank you.
Yes, Unnati. Can you find what error you have done in citation? Yourself, can you tell which rule you have broken in your references? Now you have studied research methodology also. So now you cannot make simple mistakes. So can you identify which mistake you have made, or which rule is broken? Because if you don't know, you can't improve also. If you know what is the correct way, what mistake you have made, then only there is chance of improvement. Otherwise you can't improve. On the second page of your presentation, you have cited same article 2 times in a different manner. Can you see that? This is your from ResearchGate. You have cited reconstructed memory of love in Julian Barnes is the only story. First, you have cited with K alphabetical order. Karam, Naib, Por. The same next time you have typed with N, Naib, Por, Karam. So same article, two different way you have cited. So which one is correct and which is incorrect? Even this ResearchGate by Diana also you have made mistake, and there is one more article from ResearchGate by Peter Chalupsky. That also. So what mistake is made? Can you identify that? Second one is correct. Why second is correct? Why first is wrong? These are now basic rules. Research methodology, citation, MLA handbook you are referring. And tomorrow anybody will ask you that, are you not taught how to do citation? You have done dissertation paper, but you don't know the basics. Then people will say that you are not taught anything then. What is research writing if you don't know simple rule? What is that rule? Who will tell? Anybody else? Yes.
Sir, last name first and then first name.
Yes,
second.
last name should be written first. So that rule is a very simple rule, which you have broken and you are not able to name it, that this rule is broken. So then when you will go for some PhD admissions in other universities, people will say that, have you studied dissertation? You will say yes. And then they will say that, then what are you taught? They won't know that you might have remained absent throughout the classes, not attended properly, or attended but not concentrated in the classes. Otherwise, such simple basic mistake, how can you make in all these citations? Another one, Asha. I am sharing one document which we get as plagiarism check document from Google Classroom. Okay, I'm sharing in WhatsApp, so all can study this as a case study. Okay? That how you have to be very careful when you do these things in dissertation, other thing. You will get this kind of originality report, which will say that how many percentage things are taken from what. Like it shows that 39% is from slideshare.net. Where is Asha? Yes, slideshare.net. So in the morning also, we have seen today that many students are copying from previous students' presentations. Some are copying because you may say, no, we are inspired. But if you are inspired, then you have to cite their names. Why are you hiding their identity? What is honesty? In research methodology, you study this, no? Why plagiarism? Tomorrow you all will make very big presentations on academic honesty, plagiarism, why plagiarism should not be done. બધી મોટી મોટી વાતો કાલે કરવાના છો બધા. આજે એ બધો જ ભંગ કર્યો છે. એ બધી એ યાદ તમે રાખજો ત્યારે કે what presentation you make, are you following that or not? So basics about research methodology is this only, that you honestly tell from where you have taken the things. And if it is from anybody, like your classmates have inspired you, or you read something, you talk something, then you have to very honestly display. So this slide share, so when I try to look which slide share you have used, so we find Nirav Amrelia, our previous students' presentation. So this we get. Memory narrative, Julian Barnes's The Only Story. So many slides are very common from this presentation, but you are not cited in your references, Nirav Amrelia then. If you want to take, then cite it. You should not take. You have to go to the quality journals. You have to go to quality journals and you have to refer to the things. You are not supposed to take from students' presentations or blogs also. Not even Wikipedia, not crowdsourced thing, but that's why we told you to go to Gestor, refer to ONOS, our MKBU library, quality journals, and pick up idea and then write in your own mind. That is the fundamental. If you break that fundamental, then everything is wrong. તમે જે જમીન ઉપર ઉભા છો એ જ ખોટી છે. ભાઈ તમે ગમે એટલી મોટી ઇમારત એમાં કરો, એ આખી ખોટી જ છે ઇમારત. Because fundamentals are wrong, which we are telling you from the beginning, that why quality articles needs to be referred. એટલું ખાલી યાદ હોય તો તમે એ દિશામાં જાવ જ નહીં. That no, I don't want to do this. I want to go to quality journal article and talk about that only. But if you miss that, then you can never improve your dissertation writing or any research-based activity also. So this will tell how many things you have taken from what sources. And imagine this kind of things if you do in your dissertation, and if somebody will check, then you will fail also in the dissertation of the thing. And to fail to kharu, આખી university badnaam થાય એમાં પછી. Okay, this is what our students are taught to do. So we tell that you don't have to do, you have to learn about academic integrity, honesty in writing. That all is necessary part. So this you have to see that when you borrow idea, you have to name it first. You have to borrow ideas from well-renowned people, quality journal articles. From that you have to take ideas, not from anybody who has borrowed ideas from somebody else. So your ideas are borrowed from somebody who has borrowed from somebody else. So that is not the right way. It is all open. Internet is open, library is open, books are open. You don't have to memorize anything. So when everything is open, go to quality work and pick up the things. Okay, you can start now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rahul Desai, and today I am presenting my presentation on the topic of exploring intertextuality and literary echoes in Julian Barnes' The Only Story. These are my personal informations, table of contents, which I discuss in this presentation. This is the hypothesis and research question of this presentation. And now let's begin with the first slide, introduction of Julian Barnes. Julian Barnes is an English writer of short stories, essays, and many novels. Then he was born on January 1946 in Leicester. His writing is renowned for his originality and intelligence. In his work, we can find about the originality and the intelligence of the work. Julian Barnes explored the variety of themes in his work, like memory, history, identity, love, and death. He also won the Man Booker Prize in 2011 with The Sense of an Ending. The Sense of an Ending, one of the renowned novel by Julian Barnes. His work also associated with the postmodernist movement, which rejects the traditional storytelling. Then we can see about the introduction of novel. When we read or when we open the book of original book of the only story, at that time we find the first quote on the page, like, would you rather love the more and the suffer the more, or love the less and the suffer the less? That is, I think, finally the only real question. These quotes exemplify the suffer in the love. Love is not only the great feeling or good things, but also the come with the pain and suffering. The novel Only Story, published in 2018. In this novel, we can find several themes, like major themes like love, responsibility, memory, marriage, and many more things. The shifting in this novel, we can also identify the shifting of narrative techniques, like first person to second person, then second person to third person. Then literary influences on the novel, like Barnes mirror Proust's exploration of memory, in which we can find also the power of memory in this novel. When the Paul remember his past and past love and many more things. There's the fragmented and subjective, the recollection of the memory. Barnes also adopted the modernist technique, like Virginia Woolf and Ford Maddox, like using the non-linear storytelling and shifting perspectives to challenge the narratives. That the novel also subverts the Shakespearean romance, particularly from the Romeo and Juliet. Like here we can find the both two characters, like Paul and Susan. Romeo and Juliet portraying the love as painful and suffering, and disillusioning, the shaping Paul's identity and regrets. Then we also find the existential and philosophical influences in this novel through the character of Paul and Susan. And the Paul, like the Camus absurd heroes. Like Paul's love lacks meaning, but remains the emotionally incapables to attach with the disillusionment and regret about the love, embarrassing the absurdity despite its futility. Then Paul's journey mirrors Camus' existential disappear, like revealing the love as offering no answers, only suffering and self-reflection of own emotions and own identity. Then Paul's disillusionment reflects the Sartre's idea, like of creating meaning of the through the choices, free will, free choices, free thoughts, free thinking perspectives, and remains. He feels like he trapped in somewhere in love and emotionally trapped by own regrets. Barnes questions like love as fate or choice, as Paul retrospection reveals how people justify actions amid emotional suffering. Then subversions of classic love narratives. As we see about the novel always shifting the perspective, like the situations, like Barnes portrayal the Paul's love as destructive, challenge the idea of first love and pure and ending. Paul's first falling in love, at that time he think about the good thing of love, good challenges or good love in this perception. But at the end, we can find the love as also suffering and come with the pain. Paul and Susan's relationship defies the norms, as Susan is older and married, challenging the romantic ideals. Barnes present love as a question rather than the experience. We can also find the experience and experience or through the love and through the storytelling in this narrative techniques, forcing Paul and the readers to confront whether it is better to love deeply and the suffer, or to love less and avoid the pain. Then we can see about the metafiction and self-referential storytelling in this novel, like the Barnes shifting between the first person, second person, and third person, narration, making the readers questioning who is telling the story and how the reliable the account is. The Paul frequently interrupt the narrative to directly address to the readers. When readers connect with this novel or connect with the storytelling of this novel, at that time readers also questioning the some of the narrative techniques and storytelling, and the questioning on the characters struggle in this novel also. Also, Barnes highlight the fallibility of memory. Paul revises and reinterprets his past. Paul admits his story is based on the memory, not facts, making his reliability unquestionable. We see the comparison with the another novel, Barnes' another novel, The Sense of an Ending. Both novel are explore the memory fallibility, like with Paul facing the emotional disillusionment, and on the other side, in the from the Sense of an Ending, Tony also the character name of Tony also the reshaping events to accept the guilt. Then Paul and Tony are unreliable narrators. Paul's question his memory, while Tony reshapes event for the comfort. That both grapple with the loss. Both novel we can find the grapple with the loss of love, and Paul's become emotionally detached, while Tony gained the self-awareness and partial closure. Both novels explore literary and philosophical themes, like The Only Story contrasts the romantic idealism with the reality. The Only Story also connect with the idealism and connection with the reality, while The Sense of an Ending critiques historical truth and self-deceptions. In conclusion, we can find that Julian's Bond, The Only Story, definitely employs the shifting narratives, approaches, and intertextual connections to examine the love, memory, and regrets. The novel questions a convention love stories by presenting love as both transforming and destructive. Barnes challenging the nature of storytelling and the accuracy of memory through the existential and philosophical themes, like which causes readers and re-evaluate the emotional significance of prior experiences. In the end, the book or novel reinforces the universal yet distinctively individual characters, like the of the love, by portraying it as an inevitable but profound by the Paul and Susan, or also another characters. My learning outcomes through the making the presentation and through the reading of the articles, I also understand the uses the intertextuality and other concept in this novel, and then exploring the novel's narrative technique, the unique unreliable narrative technique, and metafiction also. These are my work cited. And thank you. Now session open for the question. You can ask me question.
Okay, so Rahul, how do Paul's choices reflect existential dilemmas, and to what extent is he controlled by emotions and fate?
Yes, Unnati. So my answer is that as I mentioned, or I mentioned in the PPT presentation, this presentation, like the Paul, the character Paul, believing in the free will, and somewhere he also capturing the consequences of the control of his own mind, and the like the Sartre's existential idea, the Paul meaning through the love, but somewhere he feel the trapped in the love and on emotional disillusionment or vulnerability in this novel. So somewhere we find the question suffering of disillusionment and regret through the character Paul. Second.
So Rahul bhai, my question is that how does Barnes incorporate Green's themes of doomed love into Paul's affair, and what impact does it have on his character?
Yes, Asha. My answer of this question is like the Paul falling in love with the elder lady or older lady, Susan. This love grabbed with the lots of suffering and disillusionment, loss of happiness, and loss of the pain. Come with the many pain in this novel. At that time, this kind of things the reshaped or shaped the character of Paul, and this kind of things also grapple with the disillusionment and the transformative power and the destruction of the character. Thank you. This is from my side.
Hello everyone, I am Pallavi Parmar and today I will be dealing with the topic from worship to warning, Mansa Devi's journey from religious devotion to climate symbolism. This I am academic information, table of contents. So my research question is, how is Mansa Devi traditionally portrayed in mythology, and how does Amitav Ghosh reinterpret her legend in Gun Island to connect it with nature and climate change? And my hypothesis is, in mythology, Mansa Devi is worshipped as a goddess of protection, prosperity, and healing, primarily associated with the snake worship and devotion. And we can find in Gun Island, Amitav Ghosh reinterprets her legend, transforming her from a religious figure into a symbol of climate change and ecological imbalance. Through this shift, Ghosh highlights how ancient myths can evolve to reflect modern environmental crises, showing that nature, like Mansa Devi, demands recognition and warns against human exploitation. About Amitav Ghosh. Amitav Ghosh, who is born in Calcutta and who is renowned Indian author, and whose notable works are like The Circle of Reason, The Hungry Tide, Gun Island, and Ibis trilogy. And he is most famous for his genres like novels, science fiction, historical fiction, travel writing, and autobiography and memoir. And he won awards like Gnanpith Award, and he dealt with the themes like national and personal identity, climate change, historical narratives, and post-colonialism and global climate crisis. Let's say about Gun Island. Gun Island is written by Amitav Ghosh, published in 2019, and genre we can find that climate fiction, historical fiction, and mythological fiction. Themes we can find climate change, migration, folklore, environmental destruction, capitalism versus nature. And setting we can find that the novel spans across multiple locations including Kolkata, the Sundarbans, Venice, Los Angeles, and Brooklyn. So let's move towards who is Mansa Devi. Mansa Devi is an anthropomorphic serpent goddess worshipped in Bengal. She is the central, mostly in Bengal. She is the central figure of the Mansa cult, popular among the lower class Hindus. And unlike North India's Nagraj, which means king of snakes, Bengal worship Mansa Devi. Like we also have Nagraj or Shesh Nag also in worshipping the tradition of animal worshipping. She is associated with protection from snake bites, fertility, and prosperity. And worship involves earthen pictures with serpent motifs and symbolic representations. She is known for various names, including Chintamani, Chaladuburi, Vishahari, and Padma Kumari. And we can find that worship varies across Bengal with annual festivals, temporary shrines, and permanent temples. Her cult is strong in Birbhum, Murshidabad, and East Bengal with elaborate ceremonies and
sacrifices. Uh, we can find that like in animal worship traditions, there is the tradition of serpent worship. So let's see about the significance of serpent worship in Bengal. So it is a highly revered tradition with religious variations. In North India, we have Nagaraj, king of snakes worship. Like we also the people of India also some parts worship Sheshnag also. And South India, live snakes are often worshipped. The Mansa cult in Bengal. So this is we can find that Mansa cult is especially popular among, according to Bhattacharya, among lower class Hindus, and worship practices vary across districts but stem from a common origin. We can find that the Mansa Devi, who is mostly famous for their folk tales like the Chand Sagar and the Behula legend, plays a central role in Mansa worship. Worship often involves earthen features, and we can find that in some regions the Mansa cult has merged with Saivism or Shaivism, where live snakes are kept in Shiv temples. Let's say about origin and worship of goddess Mansa. So the name meaning of the name Mansa is linked with the human fear of venomous snake, later turning into divine worship. A goddess Jaguli, mentioned in Buddhist texts, is believed to be an early form of Mansa, and some scholars stresses her origin to the South Indian snake goddess Manchamma, and later it evolved into the Mansa in Bengal. Hindu scriptures like Brahma Vaivarta Puran and Devi Bhagavad Puran describes her as a daughter of sage Kashyap, created from his mind. And we can find that worship of Mansa Devi gained prominence in mostly in the 9th or 10th centuries. Her worship became more structured in 14th centuries due to scriptural recognition, and initially tribal deity. She is a tribal deity, and she was later absorbed into Hinduism and Buddhism. And some scholars also believe that Muslim invaders from Bengal introduced her worship to Assam. So, how Mansa Devi is portrayed in Gun Island. So, we can find one parallel story revolves around this folktale of Mansa Devi and Banduki Sodagar. So, it is we can find it throughout the novel. Reference we can connect the reference of Mansa Devi and snakes appear in different settings, not just in the Bengal but also Venice. We can connect it, showing also how myths travel across the cultures. Instead of how Ghosh reinterprets her role. Instead of presenting Mansa Devi, the vengeful goddess, Ghosh connects her with migration, survival, and the natural world. Like Dean initially sees this legend old tale, but gradually realizes that it is the theme of displacement and struggle it mirrors the real world crisis. This story is reimagined through the modern migration narratives, where struggles of characters like Tipu and Rafi parallel the merchant's journey. Mansa Devi is also linked to the idea of fate and interconnectedness, and as the presence continues to influence events, even in the contemporary and globalized setting. uh, how we can find that this ancient myth hold wisdom, but we can also find that its connection with ecological crisis, and we can also find that the traditional fears of natural disaster and cosmic imbalance. And the Piali Roy, a scientist who works to protect the Sundar, like we can find that our work is like to protect Sundarbans from climate change. So she's working for that her on her project, and reinforcing the link between folklore and real world environmental concerns. We can find that Dean's journey, protagonist's journey from Bengal to Venice, we can find it connected with gun merchant's mythical journey. He repeatedly encounters snake shrines and symbols which is related to Mansa Devi. His understanding of the gun merchant's legend involves it feels like echoes of the past to him, and Tipu's near fatal snake bite and Chinta's intuitive understanding of myths further connects Dean's journey to Mansa's legend. Even in a Venice, we can find that he can find the parallel between the Madonna and Mansa, and it shows the faith and of him, and he can connect the mythology transcript geographically. We can also find this fear of goddesses through in our contemporary life also. like how the fear of goddess and the climate change and natural disasters are connected. Uh, let's see about ecofeminism and myth of Mansa Devi in the novel. Like Mansa Devi traditionally worshipped as a goddess of snake and protection, but in Gun Island, Ghosh connected it with climate resistance. Like her myth shifts from religious devotion to an urgent ecological warning. Like it reflects the nature's retaliation against human exploitation. Mansa Devi reflects female resistance, ecological balance, and nature's power. We can find that her recognition from Chand Sodagar. Like we can find that this portrait says that she is there, her recognition is there due to the story of Chand Sodagar. So it symbolizes the patriarchy and capitalism. Her connection to water, forests, and animals make her an embodiment of nature's warning signs. If we take worship versus warning, like in mythology, Mansa Devi was, we can find that she is a figure of devotion. Like people were there to pray for infertility and to cure snake bites. But in the Gun Island, she became a symbol of ecological justice. In real world, also, as mentioned in the article written by Menon, that in real world also movements like the Chipko movement reflect that ongoing fight for environmental protection and aligning with Mansa Devi's resistance. From religious icon to climate warning, her story bridges myth and modern environmental consciousness. Uh, uh, in Gun Island, we have these climate warnings like snake in Venice, a sign of climate-driven migration, dolphin beaching in the Sundarbans, consequences of pollution, like large-scale pollution and habitat destruction disrupt and marine ecosystems. Wildfire in Los Angeles, the global impact of environmental degradation. Sorry, we can find that Mansa Devi's this pursuit of merchant mirrors nature's warning and showing that ignoring environmental crisis leads to catastrophe. And we can find that Amitav Ghosh not only just mention. At first, we just find that okay, this is just a myth, which is mentioned parallelly in this with the story of Dinanath. But we can connect that we can find that Amitav Ghosh tries to transform an ancient myth into the contemporary ecological warning. So we can say that the novel urges us to recognize the signs of climate change and act before it's too late. So we can find that in Otner in her article is a female to male as a nature is to culture. She mentioned that women are culturally linked to nature, leading to systematic devaluation in the patriarchal societies. Like we can also find that in the day celebration, like Nature's Day, Mother's Day, we can find that image of mother and child, where the nature is mother is portrayed as nature. So soft. Prakriti and Purush, the concept of we also find. So, in contrast, men are associated with culture, power, and progress that reinforcing male dominance. So, in Gun Island, also, if we take this lens, and we can find that in Gun Island, also, Mansa Devi embodies nature, while Chand Sodagar or Banduki Sodagar also the merchant who represents the patriarchy and the capitalist exploitation. Just as Otner describes women being dismissed or controlled, Mansa Devi is also resisted, denied worship by Chand Sodagar. As at first, he is not able to accept her as a deity or not accept her as a goddess or denied to worship her. So we can find that she take revenge from him until he became devotee of him. And in the real myth, we also find that she killed seven son of Chand Sodagar. And then he became and after so many trouble he became a devotee of her. And the struggle of Mansa Devi also mirrors the nature's fight for recognition and respect in the male dominant, or we can say that human dominant world. Over time, we can find that Mansa Devi shifts sense the nature's retaliation against human exploitation, aligning with the eco-feminist concerns.
Like a women reclaiming power in eco-feminist discourse, Mansa Devi's story also serves as a warning against ignoring nature's resistance. So, in conclusion, I would like to say that Mansa Devi was once worshipped as a goddess of protection and devotion, bringing prosperity and safety to her followers. We are just knowing her by this story. But it is Ghosh, Amitav Ghosh, who introduced this new perspective by using her story, giving her story a lens, a new meaning. He transforms her story from a religious story to a powerful symbol, or to connect it with the contemporary problems like climate change, migration, nature warnings. Like, this shift shows that myths are not just ancient stories. Like, we can connect it with real world, today's world also. And Mansa Devi, once we can find that now she is represents nature's struggle against human world harm, and her journey from worship to warning reminds us that mythology still shapes how we understand the world, urging us to recognize nature's signals before it's too late. So we just need to have this that lens. And my learning outcome is, before that, studying this novel especially, I was just taking a myth as a story. But I can gain this lens, like we can connect old stories and myth also with today's world crisis also. This made me rethink that how stories of goddess are just not religious, but we can think from their agency also. And we can connect it with environmental and feminist movements. I am able to I'm able to understand that how it is fascinating how how nature's warning, whether it's myths or reality, are often ignored until it's too late. We can find in real world also. These are my references, and thank you. This is from my side, and if you have any question, feel free to ask.
So Pallavi, my question is that can you give a real life example of natural disaster caused by climate change like those in Gun Island?
Yes, Asha. In real life also we can find that this type of natural disasters, like we have a cyclone, Bhola, reference of Bhola cyclone in Gun Island. In sorry, near past, we have also witnessed this Tokte. We can also find this cyclone also. And we also find this fire which is shown in this Gun Island. We can in a few months before, we can find the fire, just like fire in Los Angeles, that uncontrollable fire. Like it is due to humans actions. So we can find that this type of real examples still happening of natural disasters. Yes.
So, Pallavi, my question is, according to you, are there any goddesses who, like Mansa Devi, act as both protectors and punishers based on the devotion?
Yes, like Mansa Devi, as she is known for, in the myth, she is known for curing snake bites. So we have also in Indian oral tradition or folk tales, we have also the stories, like story of Devi Shitala, who is known for curing the smallpox. But she is also there, if you are according to folk tales, if you refuse to worship her, so she became angry, and your life will be in trouble. So according to oral tradition and folk tales, these are the stories also. And we have other like Devi Durga, or other goddesses also like this. Yeah, that's it from my side, and thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kusum Sarvaiya, and on the second day of presentation, I am going to make presentation on the Anthropocene novel, Amitav Ghosh's Gun Island. And after sir's suggestion, I have tried to change the title in the sheet, not here, but in the sheet, that the journey, the unveiling the Anthropocene novel, Amitav Ghosh's Gun Island, and today's changeable world. So this is my personal information, things which I'm going to discuss in the presentation. And let's start with a research question. So the question is like, how does Amitav Ghosh's Gun Island represent the Anthropocene and the consequences, particularly through the themes of climate change, migration, and the human-nature relationship? And the hypothesis would be like this novel function as an Anthropocene novel by illustrating direct and indirect impacts of climate change on human societies and ecosystem. And through the use of magical realism and historical narratives, along with environmental crisis, the novel critiques the failure of literature and politics to address climate change, emphasizing the urgency of rethinking humanity's role in natural world. So let's start with introduction. The Anthropocene, basically a term which is signifying basically signified that a human activity has become the dominant force while shaping the planet. So we can say that interruption of human in the current society, in the so that thing which we can see that that is called Anthropocene. And here in this novel, Amitav Ghosh's Gun Island stand as a significant example of Anthropocene novel by blending history, mythology, and environmental crisis to highlighting far-reaching consequences of climate change. So Amitav Ghosh, we just have discussed his introduction, so I'm not going to discuss it again. And let's start with the term Anthropocene. So basically, it's this term describe, or we can say it is kind of a term where we can say that how humans' activity have become the dominant forcing while shaping the planet, or shaping the society, shaping the ecological system. The word Anthropocene basically comes from the Greek terms from a human anthro, and new means scene. But it is not where I was trying to see, but the definition was a little bit controversial, and basically the term was coined in 1980s, and it was popularized in 2000. It marked by climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, large-scale environmental changes caused by industrialization, deforestation, and fossil fuel consumption. And the last thing which is important about we can say about Anthropocene, that Anthropocene not more than the thing that how humans are interrupting, or we can say that how humans are cut some cycles of some natural cycles to disturb the ecological system. The Anthropocene and climate change in the Gun Island. So the novel explored the Anthropocene by climate change through a blend of mythology, history, and environmental crisis, as I've said. The main character, Deenanath Datta, a red book dealer who have unravels the legend of Banduki Saudagar while witnessing climate indices, migration of human and animals. So this is a notable thing that we can see here, that not only climate change is the main thing in the novel, main theme in the novel, but here is migration, human trafficking, along with humans and any interruptions in animal world as well. So the blending of mythology is there, as Pallavi have mentioned, the myth of Mansa Devi and the history of the Banduki Saudagar. So it linking climate change to forced migration, building in ideas from Great Derangement as another work of Amitav Ghosh, which is quite readable and quite famous, which is a non-fiction work. A Gun Island critiques society's failure to address the ecological crisis. Climate changes and its impact in the novel. So the novel start from the ecological system, from the location Sundarban, West Bengal in India, and the Venice, when very nicely we can say that how Amitav Ghosh have neated the things, that how both different locations are same by the one thing, that how sea levels are rising and how human migration is happening. So the novel highlighting how climate change doesn't just affect nature, but it impacts people's life as well by migration and all. So Ghosh uses these real example to show that how the crisis is happening now. So we can connect it with migration as well, and the rising of sea level, which is a real problem of today's world. So migration as a consequences of climate change, is where people are forced to leave their homes due to floods and disaster. The refugees in Gun Island reflect the real climate refugees from Bangladesh and other countries in real life, we can say. And the book is actually will rethink, will trying to us rethink that what happened there when millions of people have nowhere to go. Like we just have example of pandemic corona, when peoples were trying to reach their home and they were some stuck in the stuck at the mid of the roads and mid of their homes and so this kind of thing, that how migration is the disaster kind of thing, and how it will impact on innocent people and their daily life routine. Ghosh connect the climate change, politics as well, along with and human survival by a depiction of human trafficking and migration. The human nature relationship, the very we can say a prominent theme in the novel, and it will directly deal with Anthropocene, that how humans relationship is with nature. So the novel nature nurture appears to fighting back against the human destruction. So it is a obvious thing that if one will try to break something, or the humans will break the ecological system, so nature will not be peaceful, or nature will be fight back also. The novel portrays extreme weather events such as storms, floods, disappearing plants as consequences of humanity's exploitation of environment. Of course, nature is not, we can say, not that kind of pola insan. So it will be fight back by doing this floods and storms as a fight back. So Ghosh suggests that humans and nature must coexist, because for the harmony, for the controlling the harmony, and nature will retaliate. This idea is a central theme, as we can say, in eco-fiction, many eco-fiction as well, and some other works who have deal with ecology, or we can say ecofeminism, or we can say Anthropocene, will deal with the same thing, that nature and humans have to coexist, and then for controlling this harmony. The novel ultimately urges readers to recognize the urgency of climate change and the need for the sustainable relationship with the nature. So narrative style and storytelling, this is not directly related with the Anthropocene novel, but one thing that I have to say this, that how the blending of mythology and blending of climate change and some migration consequences, this kind of narrative style have Ghosh implied for know us, and or we can say for kind of tell us the cautionary tale about the future, that what could be happen in the future. So here's the best example, according to me, which is written by Amitav Ghosh. Best example of, we can say, Anthropocene novel, which is The Great Derangement. It is basically a non-fiction work written by Amitav Ghosh in 2016. Basically, it is an Anthropocene novel critiques the failure of contemporary literature and along with politics to engage the meaningfully with climate change. So basically, this novel, this work is divided into three parts, where the stories, another one is history, and the last one is politics. So the same thing you have right in A Great Derangement as well, that how politics is also indirectly connected with this migration, with this climate change and other things. So the Ghosh also explore how colonialism, capitalism, and global inequality contributes to crisis linking human histories with ecological disaster. So by weaving together history, science, and personal reflection in the Great Derangement, acts as a call to action, urging writers to incorporating climate change into storytelling. So we can say this kind of this work is totally against with traditional storytellings. So here, let me conclude the presentation here, that how Amitav Ghosh have blended this history, politics, human migration, climate change. Where we can say that how old mythology is connected with a modern perspective and modern calamities like climate change and Anthropocene and global warming. So we can say consider this work as the best example of cli-fi, the climate fiction. And here are my learning outcomes. So firstly, the geographical understanding, which is quite understandable and quite obvious in the thing that how Sundarban kind of thing, kind of place, which could be same or could be could be comparable with Venice, kind of we can say a very developed city. So another thing is a link between, I can easily understand that how Ghosh have linked the climate change, the human migration, and cultural identity. So how natural calamities, not only the natural calamities, but how this climate change, these kind of thing can affect cultural identity as well of the pure innocent people and their lifestyle. So here is a blend of mythology and modern environmental issue. So before reading or before going through this novel, I was not even know that how can one can connect this modern kind of climate change kind of problems with Mansa Devi's shrine as well, shrine and kind of thing. So and recognize the need for global awareness. We can say that how is concluding or the ultimate thing that how we have to recognize the need for global awareness to balance the society, balance the ecological system. So these are some references, and thank you. We can discuss the questions now.
So, Kusum, my question is, if Gun Island were a warning sign, what would it say?
Well, Gun Island, yes, I forgot to mention it. The thing that itself, it's a itself a cautionary tale, and in as a warning sign, we can say that we can say a danger ahead, or we can say a disaster ahead, or ready. We can say that ready for the disaster or this kind of thing. We can address it. Next question, please.
So, Kusum, my question to you is, in your opinion, what is the biggest irony of climate change?
Okay, so first thing, that biggest irony is that nowadays, yes, we have know this kind of how sea levels are rising and other natural problems. So there are many solutions of this, but one irony is kind of thing, we can say that how some powerful peoples, or we can say some powers, are still not even not doing directly something to decrease these kind of natural calamities, and the people who are innocent and people have not contribute to least to these kind of problems, and they are nowadays fighting fighting with climate change and all, in comparison of these powerful peoples. So these kind of according to me, we can say irony for the climate change. So this was from my side. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, myself Divya Jadhav, and second day of presentation, and I will go through the point of navigating the ecosphere, ecological awareness in Amita Ghosh novels, The Hungry Tide and Gun Island. This is my personal information, and these are the points which I discussed today. Now the research question and hypothesis. While we discuss on the ecological sphere in these novels of Amitav Ghosh, the question arises that how do the Hungry Tide, the novel, and Gun Island both are intertwined environmental crisis and human displacement and interdisciplinary field or knowledge that regarding to the foster to the ecological awareness. And the hypothesis deals that Ghosh novels highlight the link between ecological and social crisis, showcasing that how climate change affects marginalized communities by blending science, indigenous wisdom, and history, as they provide and promotes the ecological consciousness in the sustainability. Now the introduction. Amitav Ghosh, The Hungry Tides, and The Gun Island explore the ecological crisis intertwined with the environmental concerns on the wide cultural narratives in the both novels. And The Hungry Tides examines the tension between the conservation and human survival in the Sundarban setting of the Sundarbans, while in the Gun Island expand this to a global climate change and the idea of the marginalization through the myth, history, and science. Ghosh criticized that anthropocentrism, as Kusum earlier mentioned, and advocates that coexistence, and emphasizing the literature's role in the fostering the idea of ecological awareness in the contemporary time also. Now about the Amitav Ghosh, as Pallavi and Kusum also mentioned, in the idea that who sings for the nutmeg. Amitav Ghosh once novels, The Curse on the Nutmeg, and one seminar on the with Amitav Ghosh, and which reflect the idea in the Georgetown University, and reflect that desire to share stories about the environment and return agency to the nature, and how they reflect the importance of the environment. These are the books or works by the Amitav Ghosh. Now, the ecological consciousness in the novel of Amitav Ghosh. Ghosh works, both works are emphasize the human dependence on the nature and the unintended consequences of the ecological exploitation in the novel. The novel Hungry Tide portrays the Sundarbans as the fragile ecosystem, where setting reflect that the struggle of these three characters of the Fakir and Kanaidat and PM, which how reflect the fragile of Sundarbans through the marginalized communities and the devastating impact of the climate change and the displacement. Another novel which reflect the idea, The River of Smoke. The novel address the ecological themes through the depiction of botanical expedition. The novel River of Smoke, which was the depict a fictional novel which depict the idea of this Andaman Sea in the, and reflect the themes of the exploitation of the natural resources, and diverting the attitude towards the ghost, which reflect in these contemporary Western narratives, and reflect the historical roots of the environmental crisis in the novels. Through the ghost novels, we find that the novels are blending on the history, myth, and ecological awareness, and which promotes an urgent call for environmental policies. Now, The Gun Island, which was published in 2019, which reflect the story of the Dindat, a book dealer and in the Brooklyn, who embarks on an unexpected journey after the hearing a Bengali legend about the gun merchant or Banduki Sodagar. And throughout the journey, his quest takes takes him from the Kolkata to a Sundarban, and reflection of the Venice, and his unrevealing mysterious connection between the myth, history, and climate change throughout the novel. And now, The Hungry Tide, which was published in 2004, set in the Sundarban. The Hungry Tide explored the human nature relationship through the Pia, a marine biologist, and Kanai, who was a translator, and Fakir, a fisherman. Now, the main idea of my presentation, that how the ecological themes are reflected in the both novel. In the Gun Island, which reflect the climate change and displacement through the highlight rising of the sea levels, and extreme weather and environmental degradation in the novel, how the Dindat witness to introduce a displacement through the linking between the contemporary migration to the historical crisis, and emphasize the vulnerability of the marginalized communities. And another one is myth and reality, the depiction of ideas to Ghosh, myth or the reality, how this Mansa Devi and the idea of the reality to depict the climate change environmental idea in the contemporary contribution, and global connection through the global connection of the both novels, which reflect the as a Hungry Tide, the novel which localize and through the idea of Gun Island, which takes the journey of translation within that journey, and linking the environmental crisis on the Sundarbans, and also in the Hungry Tide, which reflect the settings where Sundarban, which reflect the space or place, which reflect through the survival or resistance. Now the ecological themes in the Hungry Tide, a novel which reflect the ecological significance of Sundarbans, was setting in Sundarbans, which space where the land and water are merged and symbolize the ecological independence and host species like Bengal tiger and genetic dolphins as which Sundarbans in the which reflect this how the environmental crises are effect on the animal and human encroachment, human nature conflict in the novel that examines the clash between the conservation efforts and the survival of marginalized communities, and the Morija Hampi, the massacre which was happens and which reflect in the 1719, which highlights the ethical dilemmas, how this massacre was reflect the idea of this in the Hungry Tide through the reflection of this Sundarbans settings where the existence of this survival and throughout the novel all characters coexistence with their journey or the life. Myth or folklore, as the both novels are depict the idea of this myth and folklore as the legend in the Hungry Tide board BB, which reinforce a balance in the portraying the coexistence between human and natures, and the myth of Dokire. The tiger demon is symbolize the tension between the human expansion and wildlife, as I earlier mentioned, that which reflect the idea of this tension about the animals and how the humans are affect for their living or their beneficial or for their life to how the effect on these animals. Now the eco-critical framework of the both novels that how reflect the idea of this eco-critical idea on the Hungry Tide and the Sundar and the Gun Island. Eco-criticism and post-colonialism. The Hungry Tide portrays Sundarbans as a consistent space where where are the marginalized are struggle survival for their existence, while in the Gun Island address the climate refugees for the environmental justice or the climate change, how the PLE work on this Sundarbans and research on the dolphin and this kind of things which reflect the Sundarbans importance. And now the anthropons and human impact on the both novel that depicts the rising of sea levels and extreme weather and how the biodiversity loss through this human impact on the animals and another urging accountability for the human driven ecology and deconstruction. Now the interdisciplinary approach, how the both novel reflects that blends the history of anthropology and science, bridging scientific and indigenous knowledge to highlight the sustainable solution. Call to the action, which reflect the climax, the idea of the climax that both novel are reflect the empathy and advocate for a sustainable practice and through the literature how its effect the eco-critical crisis through the environmental challenges on the literature. Now the comparative analysis of both novels that how Gun Island and Hungry Tides both are reflect the idea of ecological crisis in the novels, as both novels are shared the themes as the same as climate change and displacement, which in the Hungry Tides it portrays that through the Sundarbans and unpredictable tides and the struggle of marginalized communities. On another side, in the Gun Island, which reflect the global scale and linking environmental disaster to introduce the marginalized in the novel Gun Island. Another theme is that human nature and interconnection. In the Hungry Tide, it explored that ecological interdisciplines through the lives of the Kanai, Pia, and Fakir. And another is on the Gun Island, which reflect the border of ecosystem, showcasing that how species like dolphin and snakes are affected by the human activities, and on this how the by the activities of humans on the reflect the animals through their research or their invention. And both novels are reflect the idea of folklore and myth. Now the contrasting elements which find in the both novels that which scope and perspective which reflect the contrasting elements through the Hungry Tide is it is localized by focusing on the only one setting on the Sundarbans, which reflect the fragility of the Sundarbans, and another side on the Gun Island is reflect that connectivity with the environmental issue from the Sundarban to the country of the city of Venice. And the representation of agency, that how Hungry Tides highlights the agency of Bengal tiger and ivory dolphins. And another side on the Gun Island, which gives a greater prominence to the non-humanities like snakes and dolphins, and which reflect the participants in the narratives. The narrative styles of both novels that Hungry Tides uses realism and scientific discourse to reflect idea in the novel, and on the another side, Gun Island, which reflect the realism with the magical realism to making a climate change and uncanny force to the reflection of myth and folklore. Now the conclusion. Amitav Ghosh, both novel, The Hungry Tide and Gun Island, highlight the deep interconnection between the ecological social crisis and emphasizing on the disappropriate impact on the environment and degradation, and how its impact on the marginalized communities by blending between the scientific inquiry, indigenous wisdom, and historical narratives, which foster to ecological awareness and advocates for sustainable coexistence. His work throughout demonstrate the power of literature, how it shaping the environmental consciousness and urging ethical responsibility towards the natural world, especially on the contemporary time. And these are my learning outcomes. Understanding ecological awareness. As we are the students, we know about the ecological awareness, but throughout the literature, how we get the idea about the understanding towards the various kind of a little information which we are not aware to about this an ethical and global perspective regarding the awareness of the ecological or eco-critical perspective. Literature as a ecological discourse, as Amitav Ghosh novels, which are especially reflects as the idea of the ecological discourse in the novel. These are my references. And now, anyone have question regarding? Feel free to ask.
So, Divya, my question is, how do the novel function as a call to action for ecological empathy and sustainable practice?
Okay. Call to the action for ecological empathy and sustainable practice. In the both novel, we find that how reflection of the climate change or the idea of a flow of folklore or myth, which reflect on the a call to action for ecological empathies and sustainable practice, especially on the Hungry Tides, which set on the Sundarbans. Okay, anyone else?
So, Divya, my question to you is, according to you, how do the Hungry Tide and Gun Island show the Sundarbans as a place of conflict and where nature and history problems connect?
Okay. According to me, both novel Hungry Tide and Gun Island shows the Sundarban as a place of conflict, where the nature and history's problems are connect, as the Sundarbans in both novel, which reflect as for the space of survival, for the existence or the problem regarding for the marginalization through the one country, and which reflect the idea of resistance in the both novels. Okay. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Priyanshi and today I am going to give presentation on the topic politics of subaltern consciousness, the substantive representation of the margins in Nehru's towards freedom and Roy's the Ministry of Utmost Happiness. These are my personal information. These are hypothesis and research questions. These are the table of the contents and introduction. First of all, I am going to explore the concept of subaltern consciousness by the views of Gayatri Chakrabarti Spivak. So, according to Spivak, subalternity is a position without identity, a position where social lines of mobility being elsewhere do not permit the formation of a recognizable basis of action. Spivak also argues that subaltern consciousness is always subject to the people in power and never completely recoverable. Some dominant classes objectifies the subalterns and they take knowledge as a power. Caste, class, and subaltern consciousness in India. In Indian context, thinkers like Dipesh Chakrabarti and Parth Chatterjee help us to understand how caste class shaped subaltern experience. So, Dipesh Chakrabarti defines subaltern consciousness as peasant consciousness, highlighting the opposition between elite and subaltern power structures. And Chatterjee argues that caste, not class, structures Indian society shaping material relation and causing fragmentation. Subalternity is fluid, influenced by time, place, and economic status, with financial and political power ultimately defining social hierarchy. Subaltern voices in Nehru and Roy's work. Nehru's towards freedom reflect India's independence struggle, while Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness portrays marginalized communities facing caste, religious, and political oppressions. So basically, both texts highlight subaltern struggles in their respective context. Overview of both novels. Jawaharlal Nehru's Towards Freedom. In the words of Mulkaraj Anand, the cue for passion in Nehru's an autobiography seems to have come from the contemplations of the fiery, bitter, arduous, and difficult struggle in which the hero had taken part. So, Jawaharlal Nehru's Towards Freedom is an autobiographical account that chronicles his personal and political journey during India's struggle for independence. The narrative provides insight into the socio-political landscape of colonial India, reflecting Nehru's elite nationalistic perspective. It also emphasizes political development and leadership's dynamics, often focuses on prominent figures within the independence movement. This approach aligns with Nehru's position within the socio-political elite, offering a top-down perspective on the events leading up to India's freedom. Then the second one is Arundhati Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness. So Arundhati Roy can be termed as the most refined writer of this decade. She got international fame for her debut novel, The God of Small Things. Her works embodies realism, political and social crisis, and empathy for humanity. Arundhati Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness blends multiple genres, portraying contemporary Indian society through a fragmented, non-linear narrative set in Delhi and Kashmir. It explores identity, caste, religion, and political struggles, and also highlighting Hindu nationalism, Islamophobia, and Kashmir's turmoil. So, by centering marginalized voice, Roy also challenges power structure, emphasizing resilience and resistance. The novel also offers a profound commentary on identity, power, and oppression. Then Nehru's Towards Freedom and the Subaltern Perspective. In the context of Nehru's autobiography, it was written during his imprisonment from 1934 to 1935, and Jawaharlal Nehru's Towards Freedom offers a personal narrative of India's struggle for independence, also reflecting his nationalist vision from an elite standpoint. Engagement with the margins. Nehru acknowledged oppression but from an elite perspective. His inclusive nationalism raises question about whether he truly represents subaltern agency or merely speaks for them. Critics through subaltern studies lens. Chakrabarti's provincializing Europe critiques Nehru's modernist approach for sidelining indigenous perspective. Spivak's strategic essentialism questions whether Nehru oversimplifies subaltern experiences within nationalism. Then Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness and the Subaltern Voice, a post-colonial counter-narrative. So Arundhati Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness transcends traditional elitist historiography by focusing on everyday resistance, offering a subaltern historiography that challenging state's narrative of progress and democracy. Key marginalized figures in the novel. So we can see the novel can be seen through two parts. First, the first of half part is buildings in Roman of Anjum, set in the old city of Delhi, and the second half of the part is follow story of Tilotama, Naga, and Musa spanning Kashmiri insurgency. And first one is Anjum. She was known as Anjum, had been Aftab. She was born with two genders, had two mothers, two fathers, and two identities, and two sets of life experience. And Anjum is a transgender woman embodying the intersectionality of gender, caste, and religion, and highlighting the complexities of marginalized identity. Second one is characters of Tilo, Musa, and Kashmir's resistance. So through these characters, Roy critiques state violence and political injury, particularly concerning the Kashmiri struggle, then Dalit, Muslim, and Adivasi struggle. So Roy mentions Dalit characters like Saddam Hussein, Muslim character like Hazrat Sehmat, and through these characters, Roy amplifies voices often erased in official narratives and shedding light on the systematic oppression faced by this community, particularly Dalit, Muslim, and Adivasi community. Then political and narrative strategies. Roy employs a fragmented narrative structure, blending stories, obituaries, poetry, news items, and legal documents. This approach mirrors the chaotic and multifaced reality of contemporary India, emphasizing the interconnectedness of personal and political realms. By intervening the lives of her character with real historical and political events, Roy critiques systematic injustice and challenges dominant narratives. Her portrayal of the Kashmir conflict, for instance, offers a nuisance perspective that questions official accounts and highlights the human cost of political strife. So, in essence, the Ministry of Utmost Happiness serves as a testament to the resilience of marginalized communities, employing innovative narrative techniques to amplify subaltern voices and critique socio-political structures. Comparative analysis of the both novels, perspective and positionality. Nehru's toward freedom reflect his allied nationalist viewpoint, centering on political development and leadership dynamics during India's independence struggle, often through the perspective of prominent figures. So, in contrast, Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness adopt a grassroots focus, portraying marginalized individuals like Hijra, Dalit, and political dissidents. Her narrative highlights the overlooked experiences of these communities, offering a bottom-up perspective on societal issues. Second one is representation of marginalized voice. Nehru acknowledged marginalized communities but provides limited exploration of their agency, often depicting them within broader political movements. In contrast, Roy's novel highlights subaltern voices, emphasizing their resilience and resistance against systematic oppression. Her portrayal challenges power structures and gives prominence to marginalized perspective. Narrative structures of both novels. Nehru's Toward Freedom follows a linear narrative, chronological recounting events from his perspective, but this limits diverse experience within the independence movement. In contrast, Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness use a fragmented polyphonic structure reflecting contemporary India's complexities. Its non-linear progression depends the exploration of subaltern experiences. Conclusion. Both Nehru and Roy engage with the subaltern, but their approaches diverge significantly. Nehru, despite acknowledging marginalized communities, remains constrained by his elite background and nationalist vision, which limits the agency of subaltern voices in his narrative. In contrast, Roy's fragmented, multi-perspective storytelling foregrounds the lived realities of the subaltern, resisting linear and state-dominant historiographies. Their contrasting representation reflects broader tension in literary and political discourse between speaking for the marginalized and creating space for them to speak. This analysis underscores the importance of diverse nuisance representation in literature to truly capture the complexities of subaltern existence. Learning outcome. So through this study, I have gained a deeper understandings of the concept of subaltern consciousness through the work of Gayatri Spivak's Can the Subaltern Speak, and I also analysis both novel Towards Freedom and the Ministry of Utmost Happiness through the subaltern lens, and importance of diverse voices in literature, and works like the Ministry of Utmost Happiness and Dalit autobiography like Karukuku, Chuthan, and global narratives Half of a Yellow Sun amplify marginalized stories, questioning power structure and resisting historical silence. These are my references, and thank you. If you have any question, then feel free to ask.
Keep that learning outcome open. Learning. Now, here you have referred to half of a yellow sun, but you have not talked anything about that. So how it came in learning outcome? Then Juthan also.
Because it's similar to talks about subaltern.
Who is the writer? Have you read that? You know anything about that?
Chimanda Adichie.
Adichie Chimandak. And Juthan by?
Juthan by Om Prakash.
Om Prakash Juthan. Learning outcome comes directly from what you are talking about. And that has to be more personal, like what in your personal gain you are getting from the work that you are studying. Like you talked about Nehru's work and Arundhati Roy's. Okay, who is asking the question?
Priyanshi, my question is that what is the significance of subaltern in representation and shaping a contemporary socio-political discourse?
The representation of subaltern is important because it gives to voice to the marginalized groups who are often ignored in history and literature, and it also challenges dominant issues like gender inequality, political oppression. And in the novel, The Ministry of Utmost Happiness, we can see that Anjum and Tilotama's stories, how political political oppressed them. That's it.
My question is that in what ways does Roy's narrative technique diverse from conventional storytelling frameworks?
Okay, Kusum. Roy's narrative technique is different from contemporary storytelling, because it doesn't follow straightforward beginning and middle, but instead she using fragmented structure and shifting between periods, times and periods. As we know that the novel can be seen through three parts. Anjum's story, Anjum's journey is of Tab, and Tilotama Musa and Naga's case, and Dalit and Muslim communities resistance. So in this way, we can say that it doesn't follow any particular storyline, but it's shifting from different narrative strategy and storyline. This is from my side.
So, hello everyone. Myself Trupti Nayak, and my topic is interconnected operation, exploring ecofeminism and marginalized identities in the Ministry of Utmost Happiness. These are my personal information. Hypothesis: the novel suggests that patriarchal and capitalist structures exploit both nature and marginalized body. Anjum's exploitation from society parallels the destruction of nature, emphasizing that true coexistence is only possible when both are equally valued and protected. Research question: how does the Ministry of Utmost Happiness use ecofeminism to draw a parallel between the exclusion of marginalized bodies and the exploitation of nature, and what does it reveal about patriarchal and capitalist operation? Introduction: ecofeminism highlights the connection between the domination of nature and the oppression of women, emphasizing the shared exploitation. Gender identity, particularly of transgender individuals, often become a site of a social exclusion, reflecting similar patterns of marginalization as a nature. Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness bring these two themes together, showcasing nature's degradation and social exclusion of marginalized body as an interconnected struggles. These presentations aim to explore how eco-social operation works and how Roy imagines coexistence in marginalized spaces like a graveyard. Theoretical background: ecofeminism. France de Eun introduced ecofeminism, emphasizing that the oppression of human and woman and the nature stems from patriarchal dominance, and it highlights the capitalism and patriarchy treat nature and woman as a resource of exploit, resulting in dual oppression. In that, we can see that the novel explored the nature and a woman. Like nature, in the novel we can see the vulture as a nature exploitation, and the woman who is like transgender, called Anjum, and who born with both male and female genitals. In gender oppression and nature, Roy's narrative establishes a connection between gender-based exclusion and environmental destruction. Anjum's experience of social rejection as a transgender reflects how nature is discarded under modern development. In the novel, we can see that while Anjum was living in Khwabga, when he lives as a transgender woman, the Khwabga people, the transgender community, accept him. But when he faces that Gujarat riots, and then he transform herself and become a man and live like a Aftab as he was living earlier, then that Khwabga's transgender, they are not allowing that you are now man, you cannot live here. Just as the nature loses its place in urban spacing, marginalized bodies like Anjum face exclusion in society. This parallel highlights how capitalist and patriarchal systems simultaneously target nature and marginalized identities. ecofeminism, and in the Ministry of Atmos. The dying vulture symbolized nature's destruction, just as Anjum's rejection as a social exclusion. As we can see that the symbol of vulture, he who is dying in the novel because of that harmful chemicals, and the Anjum's rejection by society because he is a transgender. And also a graveyard as a refuge. Anjum transformed the graveyard into a sanctuary, reclaiming space like just like nature attempts to recover despite destruction. This space becomes a site of resistance for both marginalized people and nature. Roy's ecofeminist message. Roy highlights that oppression of nature and marginalized body share similar roots driven by patriarchal and capitalist structure. In that, we can see that the patriarchal and capitalist who are controlling women and nature, like they are used as unwanted or just not giving the priority of and led to the theory of ecofeminism. Gender identity and social rejection. Anjum's exclusion. Anjum born intersex. As we know that in the novel, the Anjum when he born, he has both genitals, male and female. Faces rejection from her family and society, symbolizing nature's marginalization in urban spaces. Parallel struggles as the nature is exploited under industrial development. Anjum's identity is suppressed under societal norms. Like both nature and marginalized body struggle for space and acceptance. Roy critic that how patriarchy silences both non-conforming bodies and natural ecosystems, reinforcing their manual operations. Exploitation of nature and bodies, capitalism as a tool of oppression. Roy demonstrates how modern development causes environmental degradation and displacement of the vulnerable. Just as vulture dies from toxic chemicals, Anjum and the other are cast out of society. As we know that the vulture is dying from toxic chemicals, and Anjum, who is transgender, and the people are not accepting the transgender community. Also, human and environmental cost. The city's development creates economical benefits but destroy natural habitats. Parallelly, the exclusion of transgender and marginalized body. Nature as a vulnerable bodies both face systematic elimination under capitalism. Here, Roy's challenge by placing Anjum in a graveyard. Roy challenges that viewer to think about spaces of exclusion and ways to reclaiming power. As we can see that Anjum in the novel, who earlier lives in the Kwabga and then moved to the graveyard. Conclusion. Arundhati Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness shows how the oppression of marginalized body and the exploitation of nature are deeply connected. Anjum's exclusion from society parallels nature's destruction from both being treated as a disposable. The graveyard where Anjums find refuge, symbolizing a space of survival and resistance. Roy ultimately advocates for a world where differences are embraced, and both nature and marginalized communities can coexist without fear of exclusion. These are my references. Thank you. Now, if you have any questions, you can ask me. Trupti, my question is that as the novel Ministry of Utmost Happiness critiques on the capitalism and industrial development, do you think that progress always comes at the cost of nature and marginalized communities? We can see that if the process is doing like in the justified way, or we can say the sustainable development, it can be helpful for both, like the companies and the industries are to nowadays are destroying the forest, like buying the lands and pollute the rivers. And if the like sustainable development we can do, that we can save nature also, and also we can do not displacing the poor people
home and poor people's land. Through this sustainable development, we can manage the both things, like do not exploit the nature, and also do not displacing the poor people.
My question is, how does the disappearance of culture show the connection between environmental destruction and social exclusion?
In the novel, we can see that environmental destruction is like a vulture who is dying in the novel, and it shows environmental explosion, and also social exclusion. We can see the character of Anjum, like he is transgender, and the society is not accepting her, and we can connect both, like applying. Also, we can apply the ecofeminism theory, like the nature and the marginalized society. We are not giving importance, or not priority to them, like we can use them as unwanted in the novel, and as the connection between them, like we can tag it like unwanted, or just marginalized. Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today is my presentation topic is trauma and storytelling in Arundhati Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness. This is my personal information table of content. My presentation hypothesis: if trauma in the Ministry of Utmost Happiness is shaped by political violence and social exclusion, then survival, storytelling, and communal space like Jannat Guest House become acts of resistance and healing. If Roy uses fragmented narrative to mirror trauma's effect, then storytelling itself serves as both a coping mechanism and challenge to dominant histories. If happiness traditionally defined by social norms, then the novel redefines it through resilience, acceptance, and chosen family among the marginalized. My presentation research question is: how does Ministry of Utmost Happiness depict trauma through its character, and how does storytelling function as a means of coping and resistance? Introduction of author. Uh, uh, Arundhati Roy, born in November 24, 1961, Shillong, in India. He is a profession. She was a profession like author and activist. She was a she notable work, The God of Small God of Small Things. Also, this novel Booker Prize. Uh, she was a written key themes like social justice, environmentalism, and political dissent. She was also write on activism, Opus Narmada Dam project, and CAA. Legal issue, right on face on sedition and contempt charge. His impact on inspiring voice in women rights and democracy. About the novel, The Ministry of Utmost Happiness, author is this novel author is Arundhati Roy, and it was published in uh, 2070. This novel genre is political fiction, and primary this novel setting was a contemporary India. This novel main theme focuses identity, political unrest, resilience, and a woman connection. This novel plot is Anjum, a transgender woman, builds a sanctuary in a graveyard. Interwoven lives reflect India's social realities. This novel significance was a bold critique of society, blending the lyrical prose with realism. Uh, Understanding trauma in the novel. What is trauma? Trauma is discussed by Keruth and Herman, is an overwhelming event that lingers in unconscious, shaping behavior and identity. In the Ministry of Utmost Happiness, trauma emerges personal loss, social oppression, and political violence deeply affecting the novel character. Trauma in the Ministry of Utmost Happiness. The novel reflects the trauma fiction through memory, dislocation, and fragmented storytelling. Painful events like political violence, right, and war resurface, showing how trauma lingers across generation. Character like Anjum and Tilo cope through isolation, struggling with the identity loss and emotional detachment. Roy's linear narrative structure mirrored the traumatic memory, immersing reader in the confusion is a distortion of the survivor. Major character and their trauma. Anjum, intercept and later identified as a Hijra. Anjum struggle with the social rejection and personal identity. She finds solace in the Hijra community but never fully belongs. Her trauma depends after witnessing the Gujarat riots where she survived only the due superstition. This event triggered PTSD, leading to her to withdraw into graveyard, symbolize her detachment from life, a subconscious death wish. Tilo is an architect whose life shaped by her experience with the loss and war in Kashmir. She remains emotionally detached, silently witnessing the brutality around her. Her connection with Musa ties her to violence in Kashmir, where war declared personal fate. Musa is forced into world of insurgency, but the brutal reality of war, the loss of his wife and daughter, push him into emotional withdrawal, where he exiles as a shadow of his former self. His character embodies the psychological toll of war, showing how violence strips away identity and hope. Death wishes survival instinct. Graveyard is a metaphor for trauma and exu- exu- execution. Exile, marginalization. Anjum retried the graveyard after the Gujarat massacre and social rejection, symbol of social death. Graveyard is a symbol of social death, a space for dead mirror Anjum outcast status. Religious and political percu- persecution reflect the forced execution of Muslim Kabristan ya Pakistan. Slogan: Heterotopia function as a space outside social norms, housing marginalized community. Anjum's journey, isolation to socialism. For Anjum's journey to solitude to community turns into Jannat, a refuge for outcasts. She was a reclaims identity. I am not Anjum. I am Anjuman. Embrace the fluid identity. She was also resistant throughout ritual, provide the burial for erased defining dominant narrative. Also, she was a healing graveyard shift from trauma century, countering executionary politics. Survival is a resistance. Anjum survival is a defense of reclaiming graveyard as a sanctuary. Throughout Tilo's character, emotional detachment is a fight for of resistance. Musa's existence symbolizes war of unresolved trauma. Storytelling as a healing and resistance. Storytelling as a therapy. In the Ministry of Utmost Happiness, storytelling serves as a means of coping and trauma and reclaiming identity. Anjum's bedtime story for Jena allow her to rewrite painful memory, turning into suffering into comforting narrative by controlling how event remembered by and told. Anjum transformed storytelling into healing process, both from herself and for Jena. Storytelling as a testimony and resistance beyond the personal healing. Storytelling in the act from testimony that resist oppression by narrating the injustice faced by marginalized group Anjum, Tilo, and Musa. Roy's narrative style is a resistant. Arundhati Roy in this novel narrative style use on non-linear and poetic narrative reflect chaotic and painful nature of trauma. The novel fragmented structure of mirror and disjointment memories, its characters making storytelling act of survival through shifting timelines, multiple perspective, and reliable prose. Royce challenged conventional storytelling norms using her narrative style as a form of literary resistance against oppression and dominant histories. Jannat, utopian peace and happiness throughout trauma and there are Anjum character Jannat peace was a tool for happiness and uh, Anjum transformation Jannat guest house is a third phase. Anjum turns the graveyard into Jannat guest house, creating a refuge for society's outcast. This space built on acceptance contrast with the mainstream world, turning death into symbol of a renewal and belonging. Alternative family structure. The novel redefines family beyond blood ties. Anjum adopts a Zainab. Tilo finds the home among the marginalized. Imam Zainadu offer the spiritual guidance. Their bonds highlight love and acceptance over traditional family norms. The dunya versus marginalized world. Roy contrasts the mainstream world dunya with Jannat guest house, exposing systemic exclusion. While society rejects Hijra, Dalis, political outcast, the graveyard becomes a space of resistance and belonging. Different meaning of happiness. Happiness takes different forms. Anjum finds it in survival, Tilo in resistance, and other shared solidarity. The novel suggests the true happiness comes from self-acceptance and creating own space. Conclusion. Arundhati Roy, the Ministry of Utmost Happiness, explored the trauma as a both personal and political, affecting marginalized community throughout characters like Anjum, Tilo, and Musa. The novel showed different responses to trauma, withdrawal, resilience, and rebellion. Storytelling became a way to heal and resist oppression. Anjum transformation of a graveyard into Jannat guest house symbolize hope, redefining happiness as a survival, acceptance, and chosen family. The novel fragmented style reflect the trauma's effect, but also ensures that suffering is not forgotten. In the end, Royce show while trauma, isolated storytelling, and community bring healing and strength. Learning outcome through I am making this presentation understanding trauma in society. I learned how trauma caused by political violence and social oppression deeply affect individual and community in this novel. Also, I learn about I how Anjum, Tilo, and Musa struggle with trauma and how they experience shape their identity and choices. Also, I understood how storytelling helps of characters pain, resist oppression, and reclaim their narrative. I realized how Anjum transformation of graveyard into Jannat represent hope, acceptance, and new way of living. Also, critique of issue like marginalization, identity struggle, political, and contemporary India. These are my references. Thank you. Now let's discuss question.
Answer the questions in the comment. YouTube is. Yes, the remaining one you have to be very quick, brief also. It is already 5:30. Okay? Still we have 5 presentations. Okay?
Hello everyone, myself Hemali Parma. Today I am going to give presentation on Where Happiness Lingers, Queer Resistance and Memories in Arundhati Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness. Here is my personal information. Here is the research question and hypothesis. Introduction. Arundhati Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness, which was published in 2017. The novel explores happiness, memory and belonging in a unique way. A main character Anjum, a hijra who finds home in a graveyard, the novel challenges conventional narratives of nationhood identity and heteronormativity by offering an alternative form of community rooted in resistance and solidarity. Graveyards as heterotopias of memory and resistance. Usually, graveyard seen as a place of deed, but in this novel, it becomes home for the living. Essa applies Michael Foucault's concept of heterotopia. Heterotopia means other spaces that mirror and disrupt mainstream society to the graveyard where Anjum builds her community. Unlike the fixed and exclusionary spaces of the nation state, the graveyard in the Ministry of Utmost Happiness functions as a counter space, offering refuge to those displaced by rigid nationalist and heteropatriarchal structures. The graveyard as counter nation. Anjum's home in the graveyard stands against the Indian state, which marginalizes minorities such as Hijras, Dalits, and Muslims. The fluidity of this space contrasts with the state's rigid boundaries of caste, gender, and religion, multidirectional memory, and intersectional histories. Using Michael Ruthbach's theory of multidirectional memory, Essa argues that the graveyard preserves the intertwined histories of marginalized communities. Rather than prioritizing one group's suffering over another's, the graveyard functions as a living archive where different forms of oppression intersect. This contrasts with dominant nationalist memory, which erases or hierarchizes suffering to maintain state narratives. Reassessing belonging in a divided nation, ESA compares the Ministry of Utmost Happiness to McIndale, highlighting how both novels use graveyard as counter narratives to nationalist exclusion. The graveyard allows Anjum to forge an alternative form of belonging, one rooted in collective memory rather than state-sanctioned identity. Post-colonial queer happiness as resistance. A scholar named Gutierrez Glick challenges the common association of queerness and post-coloniality with suffering, drawing from Ananya Jahanara Kabir's concept of post-colonial happiness. She argues that the Ministry of Utmost Happiness reclaims happiness as a political and collective act, defying the archive of melancholia. Postcolonial studies and queer theory often emphasize melancholia, positioning unhappiness as an inherent condition of marginalization. However, Roy presents happiness as a form of defiance against the forces that seek to erase or contain queer and political identities. The communal nature of happiness. Anjum's journey reflects Kabir's idea that postcolonial happiness is not individual but collective. Despite her exclusion from mainstream society, Anjum finds happiness in building a community that embraces other marginalized individuals. The novel's portrayal of communal resilience challenges capitalist and nationalist notions of happiness, which are tied to productivity and heteronormative family structures. Queer joy as political resistance. Unlike the state's vision of happiness rooted in consumerism and heteronormativity, Anjum's happiness is radical, existing outside these structures. Gutierrez Glick argues that this happiness emerges through acts of care, mutual aid, and the refusal of conform to societal expectation. The graveyard, rather than being a place of death, becomes a site where happiness lingers despite loss and exile. By redefining happiness through queerness and post-colonial resistance, Roy challenges both academic and mainstream narratives that confine happiness to normative structures. Minoritarian affects generosity as an ethics of resistance. Bhattacharya explores the ethics of generosity in Anjum's graveyard community, drawing from the real-life figure of Mona Ahmed, a hijra who inspired Roy's character. He argues that Anjum's acts of care create a radical form of belonging that exceeds normative identity categories. Building a home in a graveyard, Anjum's decision to live in a graveyard, which she made, reflects a rejection of society's rigid hierarchies. The space she creates is open to all women escaping the domestic violence, lower caste individuals, and for animals also. This horizontal model of community contrasts with the exclusionary structures of family and nation. Queer kinship beyond normativity. Bhattacharya argues that Anjum's community embodies a minoritarian affect, a form of emotional and political solidarity that does not rely on state recognition. Her acts of generosity are not transactional but deeply tied to a queer ethics of care. This challenges traditional kinship structures that define belonging through blood or legality. Happiness in resistance. Bhattacharya suggests that happiness in the Ministry of Utmost Happiness is not about personal fulfillment, but about creating spaces where life can persist despite oppression. Anjum's community offers an alternative vision of happiness, one that is fluid, inclusive, and resistant to state control. Conclusion. Arundhati Roy's The Minister of Utmost Happiness redefines happiness as a radical act of resistance found in the margins rather than within rigid community. The novel challenges exclusionary narratives, transforming spaces of loss into sites of care, memory, and belonging. Roy presents happiness not as personal fulfillment but as a collective, defiant force that lingers in acts of generosity, solidarity, and survival. My learning outcome. Throughout the novel, I understand how the Ministry of Utmost Happiness redefines happiness through queer resistance, memory, and alternative kinship. It also helps me to analyze the graveyard as a heterotopic space that challenges nationalism, patriarchy, and exclusionary identity structures. It also recognizes acts of generosity and care as forms of political resistance that reshape belonging and community. Here are works cited. Thank you. If anyone has questions, feel free to ask.
Answer the questions in online. Yeah.
Hello everyone, myself Jatin Varu. Today I'm going to present a presentation on the novel Ministry of Utmost Happiness as a Political Archive. This is the presentation. I think in last two presentation you get idea about the author and his work. So let's skip these two beautiful slides and directly come out on the core analysis of my presentation. Novel as a political archive. The Ministry of Utmost Happiness by Arundhati Roy is a political novel that highlights social injustice in India. It portrays the struggles of transgender people, focusing on the challenges faced by Anjum. The novel exposed the religious intolerance and discrimination against Muslims. The reference real-life events like a 2002 riot, Gujarat riots and the Kashmir conflict. Roy critic caste discrimination and mistreatment of Dalits. The book questioned Hindus' nationalism and its impacts on Indian secular identity. By combining the fiction with real-life issues, Roy represents a strong critique of modern India. The emergency of 1975 in India. The novel refers to the emergency of 1975, which was declared by the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. It caused political instability and resisted people's freedom. Publicly gathering were banned, police could search home without the warrant, and people could be arrested without any charges. The novel described the emergency as a time when civil rights were taken away, newspapers were censored, and thousands of men, especially Muslims, were forcibly sterilized in population control camps. Prisons were overrode due to mass arrest. Bhopal gas tragedy. Roy also portrayed this tragedy in her novel. Arundhati Roy highlights the impacts of Bhopal gas tragedy in her novel. The disaster took place in 2nd December 1984 due to gas leak at the Union Carbide factory in Bhopal. She gives the voice of victims, those who died, those who were injured, and those still suffering from the after effects. In the novel, Anjum encountered a group of 50 protests at the Jantar Mantar fighting for justice for victims of this tragedy. And our topic related of our state, the Gujarat riots of 2002. The 2002 Gujarat riots broke out after the Godhra incidents, leading to 3 days of violence between Hindu and Muslim communities. Arundhati Roy includes the two characters from her novel, Anjum and Zakir Mia, in the event of the riots. She described how mobs in Ahmedabad, armed with sword and tridents and wearing saffron handbands, attack on Muslims. The violence was not only described at Muslim but also there. Hindus also lost their lives, but their stories are often overlooked. In the picture, you can find a poster boy of the Gujarat riots 2002. I'm talking about the people who was wearing a black shirt. In this video, you can find the detailed analysis of the detailed story of the poster boy of the Gujarat riots of 2002. In the video, we can find how communal disaster and communal violence leads towards any particular religious people to the disaster and violence against the other religions and the people also. Arundhati Roy not only include the national issues but also include the global issues like September 11th attack. The Ministry of Utmost Happiness, Arundhati Roy, mentioned the September 11 attacks to show global political tension. Anjum and the residents of Khwabga watched the World Trade Center collapse on TV in shock. This scenes highlight how global events after people even from far the US. Instead of blaming Osama bin Laden or the US government, some character believe co-workers' evil spell caused the attack, showing the role of superstition and misinformation. The novel also reflects how after 9/11 Muslims worldwide, including in India, faced increased suspicion and discrimination. Roy connects the events to growing anti-Muslim sentiments in India and political rhetoric and targets minorities. Gujarat and general election 2004. Narendra Modi and Gujarat politics. Modi is included as a Gujarat ka lalla since as both mass leader and complicate in 2002 Gujarat riots. He won the 2004 Gujarat election focusing on development. BJP and defeat in 2004 in general election. The Congress leader UPA and replaced the BJP lead NDA. Anjum celebrated BJP's loss, blaming them for the Gujarat riots. Critique on leadership. Manmohan Singh is despite as a puppet of Sonia Gandhi, leading to a disillusionment. In nowadays also, Manmohan Singh is considered as a puppet of Sonia Gandhi, but despite we cannot misjudging his identity vision towards the economics and leadership also. communal politics and Hindu nationalism. The novel critiques Hindu nationalism like Modi's rise, communal violence, and political oppression. And the second incidents we find when in novel, devotees gifted him a printed suit with Lalla 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 woven into the fabric. We wore it to greet visiting head of the state. In 2015, when our prime minister was visited the America to meet Obama, then our native Gujarati people who like I forget his name exactly, but I think he was Bhavin Ramesh Kumar Bhavin Bhai Virani, who was gifted this suit, and in this suit we find a letter of Narendra Modi in a golden letter on the whole suit, and I think the suit was probably costly by to the 10 lakhs rupees also. So these evidence also Arundhati Roy portrayed in his novel Anti-Corruption Movement of 2011. In 2011, Anna Hazare started a hunger strike at the Jantar Mantar to protest against the corruption. His movement gained support from people across the country. The novel refers him as a tubby old Gandhian who was once a soldier and later become a social worker. It describes how it interviews. He smiled and talked about his simple life in temple room. He also explained that Gandhian practice helped him to stay strong during his fast. Here we can find also a second political element in the character of Mr. Agrawal, who is metaphorically represent the AAP leader Arvind Kejriwal in the novel. Conclusion of the presentation is Arundhati Roy's novel, The Ministry of Utmost Happiness, is politically novel that examines the social and political condition in India. By placing Anjum at the center of various events, Roy highlights the struggle of people affected by significant incident in the country. Through her storytelling, she brings attention to the suffering of marginalized communities and those impacted by political turmoil. Additionally, the novels subtly criticize the political climate of India using real events and figure out the convey its message. These are my references, primary resource, and in secondary resource you find the articles on the attack on September 11, Bhopal gas tragedy, emergency of India, and others also. So thank you. This is from my side. If you have any question, kindly please put it in a comment section. I will personally answer your question in comment. Thank you, everyone.
Hello everyone. Today is the second day of the presentation, Contemporary English Literature. My topic is that from coaching center to capital crimes, a comparative study of Revolution 2020 and the White Tiger. This is my academic information. This is hypothesis and my research question. This is table of content. Firstly, start introduction of the novel. First, Revolution 2020 by Chetan Bhagat. The novel revolves around the three central characters, Gopal, Raghav, and Aarti, set in the holy city, Varanasi. The story explores the personal struggle, love triangle, and ambition in a society influenced by corruption. The novel highlights corruption in India in education system when institutes are controlled by politicians rather than the academy. It criticizes the role of media, which is often manipulated by power and money. The novel questions whether success achieved through unethical means is truly fulfilling. Revolution 2020 is a mixture of romance and social commentary. portraying the struggle of the youth in a corrupt society. It emphasizes the need for honesty and reform in India's political and educational system. Second novel, The White Tiger, by Arvind Adiga, published in 2008. The story is presented through a series of letters written by the novel protagonist Balram Halwai to the Chinese primat Wen Jiabu. The novel highlights the stark divide between India's wealthy elite people and improvised underclass. The novel's protagonist, Balram, a poor man from the rural village of the narrate his transformation from a struggling servant to a successful entrepreneur. As a protagonist, Balram, working as a driver for a wealthy businessman, Ashok, Balram witnessed corruption, power struggle, and exploitation within India's elite class. Using the stolen money, Balram reinvented himself as a successful entrepreneur in Bangalore. First point is the comparison, socio-economic and political context. First point, education system and social mobility. Both the novels to see the education system in first novel, The Revolution 2020 in the Gopal, who fails crack the exam IIT and forced to enroll the private engineering college, exposing the flaw in the system. The novel to see the commercialization of education, where private college to profit over the quality learning. In the real life, to see the private college to see not see the focus on the quantity but quality and profit. The coaching institute like those in Kota exploit the student depression, turning education into a business rather than a path to knowledge. In this what to see. And second novel, The White Tiger. The novel critiques the lack of access to the quality education. The protagonist, the Balram, is a bright student, but to skip the school because of the lack of financial problem. The education system to favor the elite while the leaving the poor within the minimal opportunity. In the novel to see the how Balram to skip the education because of the poor, and how the education and social to see the quote class divide and economic inequality. Both the novel to see how the class divide and economical inequality. The Revolution 2020 to see how novel highlight how wealthy people to connection of the success more the talent and hard work. Private institution often run by businessmen rather than the educator. The novel to see how the politician to run by the private college. And other side, the novel White Tiger, in the sea, the how India in divide two distinct classes: India of light and India of darkness. In the novel, Balaram village to how dominated by the landlord, buffalo, stock, wild boar, raven, who exploit the poor. Second point of the protagonist and their journey. First novel, The Revolution 2020 in Gopal Mishra, Gopal from a poor background. He failed the IIT entrance exam and is forced into private education. Explain the commercialization of this system. In the novel, to protagonist Gopal to see how the if he fails exam and to enter the corruption through the college. To accept the financial struggle, he partnered with the politician to open the Ganga Tech, a private college built a barbary and manipulation. And lastly, he final realization and sacrifice. He, despite the wealth, Gopal realized corruption has consumed him and silently sacrificed his love, Arti, allowing to be Virakho. And second journey to the White Tiger, protagonist Balram Halwai. He born in poverty. Balram trapped in Indian rigid class system. He working as a driver to the elite people house, and then he climbed the Ashok because of the his break the corruption in real life, to see how the people student in the not to crack the exam and poverty to suicide. Many of the numbers of the student how the result declare and not to crack and suicide because of the how the background of the family and situation. Third, of the theme of the corruption and moral ambiguity. Both the novel to see how the corruption in the moral and first and corruption theme. Both the novel in Revolution 2020 to see how the Gopal with a partner with corrupt politician built a private college, and then second novel The White Tiger to see how the Balram see all the corruption, all the levels from barbary in political in the original quote to see moral ambiguity. In the Revolution 2020 to see how the Gopal knowingly engage in corruption to gain wealth, status and struggle with the guilt. And second novel, The White Tiger, Balram justify murdering his employee as a necessary step to break free from the servitude. In the what third point is the social critique and representation of class struggle. Both the novel to see the middle class people to how the struggle with the elite people. The novel, The Revolution 2020 critique how the wealth and power determine success, leaving the underprivileged trapped in cycle exploitation. Gopal from poor background struggle to succeed an education system that favored the elite, while Raghav from a stable middle class family pursue his dream with the ace. And second novel, The White Tiger, to portray the stark division between the India of light people and India of darkness. A protagonist's journey to see how the struggle with the society. So, social critique, system inequality and corruption. The Revolution 2020 portray the corruption as a tool upward mobility and capitalist society. And second novel to see how the expose the economic, social, and political operation where the elite control resources while the poor remain powerless. And conclusion, system corruption and individual agency. Both the novel to see how environment where corruption in education and socio-economic system limit legitimize opportunity and for advancement, class struggle. Both the narrative to see how Gopal and Balram action reflect the different form of the resistance either into the subverting to corrupt system, and third, education gateway or barrier. In Revolution 2022, commercialization of education transform learning into profit-driven enterprise, and while the White Tiger illustrates how a lack of access to equality education, class division, and social mobility. My learning outcome is the understanding the systemic corruption, the role of education, examining the class struggle. In real life, one time my mother and relatives too, that son is કે મારે ક્યાં કે ટકાવારીમાં કઈ પ્રોબ્લેમ છે કે એજ્યુકેશન કે પૈસાથી કે આપણે ત્યાં that time in Revolution 2020, that time I realized I remember this incident. This is work cited. Thank you. If any question, put in the comments. I answer in comment. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jay Solanki, and today I'm going to give presentation on from DIMS to disillusionment, critical look at the Indian education system in Regulation 2020. This is my personal information, table content. This is my hypothesis and research question. I will not going to deal with the introduction because Khushi already mentioned about that. Let's come to the direct the theme of the corruption is also mentioned by the Khushi, but I will deal with this novel of Revolution 2020. So the theme of corruption is in Revolution 2020 highlights the systematic decay in education, politics, and media, portray how ethical practice often lead to success, while integrating invites struggle as well. The novel contrasts the two major character of Gopal and Raghav. That Gopal disillusionment by the academic failure and succumbed to the corruption using bribery and political connection to build the private engineering college, justifying his action as a mean of survival. Meanwhile, Raghav, as an idealist, exploits the corruption through journalism, but faces several consequences, including job loss and the destruction of his newspaper. This contrast underscores the moral dilemma and individuals face in society where dishonesty is rewarded and the ethical assist is punished. Through this narrative, Chetan Bhagat also critiques that Indian flow of system, questioning whether true success is possible without corruption. Seen in the Indian society as well. That corruption is deeply integrated in Indian society, affecting education, politics, and public administration. The education sector is particularly vulnerable with issue like a university approves entrance exam scams and private institutions of operating as a business and rather than center of the learning. So we can find out mostly the education system as a work as the with the money, with the corruption as well. Young people are increasingly fighting against the corruption, as seen through the novel's character Raghav, a journalist who exposed the corruption. In the novel, we can find out how Raghav exposed the idea of the corruption. Media play a dual role. While some newspapers expose corruption, others are controlled by the politicians, manipulate public perception. In today's time, we also find many of the news channels are telling the truth about the how corruption is happening in the education and other business or other political way also. In the modern Indian society, how it's work that in the represent of the modern Indian society, the novel present a realistic and critical depiction of the Indian society. It also highlights the corruption, power dynamics, moral decay, and survival struggle in the rapidly changing world. We can find out the today's time also. We can find that India is morely is not paying too much attention in the education, but is is take is more focused on the how we can make more money, or how we do the corruption as well. Setting and symbolism of Varanasi. So in the novel, the Varanasi take place in a big part of this novel. That how is city rich in the religion and culture history, and however the portrays contracts with the sacred image and showing corruption, decay, and the disillusionment. Class divisions and character representation. We can find out the three major character about the Gopal, Raghav, and Arti. They are three different classes of the lower, middle, and upper class. How they Gopal struggling, but in the and they are he is getting successful, but at the same time he's become the corrective part of this novel. Other is a competitive issue of privatization in the Chetan Bhagat's Revolution 2020. So we can find out this how government and the private sections are two different ideas to define the education system. How government are paying mostly paying in like students studying in free, but sometimes they are also doing some corruption in the way of the student not even realizing. In the article also is present a debate of whether privatization improve the education access and the quality or merely create the system of profit making and institutions with corrupt practices. And the privatizations of colleges in India is often linked to corruption, where private players bring the government official for land approves. Affiliation and the license. So we can today's in the time we can also find out many more colleges are demanding very high fees. In some way, a student also not uh, able to uh, able to take in that college, or is not going to reach their college because of that high price or high rate of the fees. Many private institutes privatize the financial gain over the education quality, and leading to sustain the infrastructure and the teaching. In the we can find in the more the college students are coming, but sometimes the teachers are not there because of they are mostly coming for their money, not only going to teach anything or just sit there or giving any work to keep busy the students. The novel also portrays how political influence and corruption shape the education sector. The novel critiques how education is treated as a business rather than tool for knowledge and development. In the novel, we can also find out the two major character Raghav and Gopal, how they're like Gopal is come from the poor background, but in the way he is getting success, and he has some that ego in that I am getting success, and but in the if the idea is taking about the corruption, then he is the main part of that novel. The commercialization of the education leads to an unequal system where only the wealthy can afford the quality education. So we can find out in a more the college, higher college, who is a very well known, but because of the high fees, because of their students who coming from the poor background, they have to pay fees, or making some correction or corporation that how he will going to that in the that college or that university. Societal pressure and struggle of youth. This is the main point of the corruption is going on, because the parents are forcing and going to tell their children to go in higher education, go in higher education and make us proud. But in some way, because that real that comes that makes the role of the corruption, that because of that also some part of the education the corruption is happening. Chetan Bhagat also highlights the rigid expectation of Indian parents who impose a career choice on their children. So we can find out in our Indian parents, their mindset is to that how our children study higher, but they don't realize it, how money they have to pay for that, and how much because of that corruption also take place in a very big role. Youth and societal change. Chetan Bhagat used the novel to give a voice to young Indians who struggle against the systematic issues, and he does not provide clear solution but force readers to confront reality. The title, Revolution 2020, hits a hope for the change, possibly led by the younger generation. So now we can find out, like if we take our example of our department, we can find out in earlier students are not coming because the mindset of the parents some way is not like you have to go to higher study like science, you have to do science, not the arts, you don't have that field. So parents are forcing their children to go a higher study and pay the money or pay the big money or do corruption and take the admission. In the conclusion, we can find out Chetan Bhagat Revolution 2020 serve as a stark critique of the corruption, privatization, and societal pressure in the modern India, particularly in education and policy. So, education and politics are not the different things; they are only in right now. We can find out the education and politics both are in the same field as them. Through the contrasting journey of the Gopal and Raghav, the novel question whether integrity can be achieved in a corrupt system, or if success invaluable demand compromise. And by depicting the struggle of Indian youth, Chetan Bhagat also underscored the urgent need of reform while leaving readers to ponder whether true changes is possible in the society where moral decay often overshadows the idealism. So Chetan Bhagat also question about that, how if today's, if in the 2020, or we can say 2024, how the corruption is still in where is going very high, not going to is going increasing, not is like we are studying, then we are studying because of higher fees, or we are doing study because we have to uh, we have to we have to take a degree from the university or the college, how because our mark also depend, but the corruption is still there. In a learning outcome, understand how corruption reflects the various sectors of the Indian society, particular education, politics, and the media. As a depicted in the Revolution 2020, we can find out that education and politics are mainly main topic of the Indian society. How the Indian society or India, their mindset are there. You have to earn money, more money from this education system. I also analyzed the contrasting moral choices of protagonists Gopal and Raghav, their implication on the success and integrity. We can find out Gopal and Raghav both are successful, but in a way, Gopal is some kind of doing the some. He has some that urgency of the successful, being successful. I also examined the role of privatization shaping the Indian education system and is linked to corruption. As I said, that government and private college, or we can private college or school or anything, the corruption is still there. But in a way, we are not able to speak, or we are able to being silent because of some forceful ideas about that. How it also explore about pressure of the youth, especially the regarding of career choices and moral dilemma. As Kushi mentioned about his own experience about that how family also being forced to take career in higher place and higher education to make them proud, not because of us. I also critically extend how Revolution 2020 reflect contemporary social issues and raise the question about ethical survival corruption in corrupt system. So we have still that question, that is still we are our education is still in the corruption, or we are the one who like questioning about that, or that question, corruption is going on, like no other people are not making that point of that how education system is the part of the corruption. So this is my references, and thank you everyone. If you have any question, please feel free to ask in comment. I will answer properly. Thank you.
Jay, my question is, in terms of education, what is your personal view on parental pressure in today's society and its impact on young people?
As education is the major concern here, that I also deal with in my personal life also I will deal with that form of the idea, because when I decided after the studying passing the standard 10, then I decided to take the admission in the ITI, but my parents forced me to go to take higher education, commerce or science. So I will in that zone of that education system, that parents are a big role, that you have to do that. You don't have choice. Don't have to ask us. We have going to tell you what you have to do. So in my personal view also, I can find that education is in our younger generation. We also find that, because we are here, mostly the here students are the come from the science background or commerce background, because they are forced to, or because they are forced to come here or doing the this degree, or because of they want to prove them their parents also that I will in field that I will do some such kind of successful things in this part of degree, and I will make them proud as not their choices but as my choices as well. So yeah, this is my answer. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so very good evening to all of you. It's already 6:15 and you guys are getting bored, I guess. So I will try my level best to conclude myself as early as I can. Yes. So on the very second day of our presentation seminar, we are but going to present the topic education and corruption and power in the wet time, the hunter and the revolution 2020. These are my academic information. If we talk about introduction, then we come to know that the education, corruption, and power from the intricate nexus that shapes societies, influencing the opportunities, governance, and ethical frameworks. The movie Wet Time and the novel by Chetan Bhagat, Revolution 2020, present the compelling critiques of how systematic corruption infiltrates the education sector and the genuine reform and perpetuating cycle of exploitations. Also, we find in Revolution 2020 that how it exposed the commercialization of the educational and moral compromises individual make to succeed, and the movie we can see Bedtime delves into delves into the ethical dilemmas of law and its enforcement of justice within the corrupt system. Yes, both the narratives, yet they also both the narrative underscore how the power structure manipulate education for the personal and political gain. Yet they also suggest the resistance, whether it's through the idealism or sacrifice or moral awakening, and all these things can challenge the institutionalization operation. By comparing these two works, this study explored the complex interplay between education, corruption, and power, questioning whether systematic change is achievable or it is remains an illusion amidst uh, and entered corruption. Yes, the research question and hypothesis for the day is the research question. If we can see that how the movie and novel critiques the nexus of education, corruption, and power, and what they suggest about the possibility of systematic reform. And the hypothesis is both the movie and the Revolution 2020 explore the intersection of education, corruption, and power. Revolution 2020 critiques the commercialization of education, where the movie Vettayan examines the ethical dilemmas of power and justice. Both the narrative highlights how systematic corruption can reform. Yes, and how also they also can suggest the individual resistance can challenge the oppressive structures. Yes, the about the Revolution 2020, all Khushi and Jai were already discussed, so I'm not going to discuss this. But I want to discuss these main themes and main characters which I have taken from Bharat Sir's article on ResearchGate, the thematic study. The main themes that we find that love, corruption, ambition versus ethics, and education system, that similarly we can find in Vetain also. And the main character, if we talk, then that Gopal Mishra. Yes, a lower middle class boy who takes a corrupt path to success, and Raghav, also an Arti, the love triangle that we all know about this story. The Veta and the Hunter, the movie, which is basically translated from the Tamil movie, yes, which is released on 2024. Yes, genre, it is action drama. It is directed by T.J. Gananwell, and the producer of this film is the Lisa Productions. Yes, Laika Production, sorry. Laika Production, and lead actor by Rajnikant. as Athenian, and the additional cast that here you can see. If we can see the plot summary, then we come to know that the main leading actor were is in a way super intended of sorry superintendent of the police in Kanyakumari, known for his encounter killings, and he tackles the drug in infiltration in school. Yes, exposing a criminal nexus that includes the educational scams. Yes, and key events if we find, then Athian and his informer eliminate a drug producer. Yes, is an encounter, and the murder of Saranya, a middle class school teacher who, in a way, expose the drug menace and raises the alarms. Yes, initially the software engineer Guna is falsely accused, that we also find, and how the main character, he uncovers the corruption in education and linked to officials and powerful figures. Yes, the themes, it is similarly with this revolution 2020, justice versus corruption, abuse of power, and moral ambiguity. Yes, educational as a double-edged sword that we find in revolution 2020. We all know that the novel, how it is portrays the commercialization of education, where private institutions are prioritized profit over the learning. Yes, the Gopal, one of the protagonists, fails to secure the place in the reputed engineering college due to the lack of merit and financial constraints. Similarly, in the movie that we find, that this film critiques the flaws in India's education system, especially private coaching centers and their exploitative practices. It highlights how students preparing for competitive exams like NEET and face the immense pressure due to the high cost of private education. Here I also want to mention that somewhere I hear that there is no need to come at to the college. You were getting your certificate, whichever degree you want, you just have to fill up your form, and the certificate you can easily get. The amount they told you, these lakhs of rupees, 13 lakhs or 50 lakhs rupees that you have to give to them, and the certificate that automatically get though. So corruption in the education system were constantly, in a way, emerging outside the world, and the in the movie, the character, like a school teacher, class school teacher, have to in a way survive against this kind of drugs dealers dealing, which is happening in the movie, in the school atmosphere. Yes, if we continuing, then we come to know that revolution 2020 is reflects the flawed education system, where money and influence often determine success rather than the talent of hard work, and the privatization of schools and colleges is as lower moral and ethical standards among the students and teachers. Yes, Vetta and the Hunter also, in a way, this story exposes the struggles of government school teachers like yes, Saranya, who attempt to bring positive change, but face the threats. Yes, and in the movie that we find that the Suranya is constantly fighting for the change in this school, in her school and the education system, but at the end she has to face the death, she has to lose herself. Yes, so that is how that we find that the education system is we can see that the education is portrayed as a double-edged sword. While it can empower individuals, corruption and dilutes the purpose. This I have taken from Chandar's article, which is published in the Hindu. Yes, platform and revolution 2020 I have taken from Kumar's article, which is published in ResearchGate. Yes, the role of corruption, that if we can see, then Gopal Mishra's journey highlights the corruption in India's education system. Yes, we all know about the Gopal Mishra's character, that how he in a way opens a private education factor. Yes, along with this Shukla ji and all these characters. Yes, and no, oppositely the film exposes the corrupt educational and educational institute that prioritize the profit over the students welfare. Yes, unable in revolution 2020, that we find that inability of the to secure admission to into an engineering college due to a lack of merit and financial resources. He by mean this Gopal Mishra, in a partnership with corrupt MLA Shukla ji, to open a private engineering college. Yes, Ganga Tech, that we all know about. Yes, the novel also exposes how private colleges exploit students and parents by prioritizing profit over the education. This I've taken from the Das article, which talks about how these revolution 2020 explored the theme of corruption. Yes, and the Vetta and the Hunter, it also showcased how banks and coaching centers trap students and families in debt under the false promises of success. Yes, this I have taken from Srinivasan article, movie review basically, and it is published on the platform the Hindustan Times. Yes, continuing the things that Gopal learns that how bribery is necessary for acquiring land, getting approvals, hiring faculty, and even securing the students' admission. The novel critiques the commercialization in education, showcasing how education has turned into a business rather than means of empowerment. Yes, and the movie Vetan also in a way talks about the murder of Surenya, as I've mentioned, that reveals a larger network of corruption, including the drug rackets and fraudulent institutions and political influence. Yes, corruption is shown as deeply embedded in the system, affecting the students, teachers, and law enforcement. Yes, here I have put some frames from this original movie, that how the policemen were in a way work under the politician and how the corruption is going on. Yes, here you can see that Nat at Academy, yes, behind this our main character, that how he observed the atmosphere of this academy and how the corruption is going on and emerging all around these academies. And these are the from the discussion that with his what we can say, that from he's getting all these information, so in a way he's kind of agent of him. Yes, the conflict between idealism and corruption that we find, that Vetain film and Revolution 2020, both the fight for justice, if we can see in the film, that Saranya teacher exposes the school corruption, but she is in a way silenced. Yes, she has to face death. Raghav, in a way, journalist, in his field, in the corruption is constantly emerging, but still he in a way tries to expose the education scams, but faces the backlashes. But still, he in a way fight with for the truth and the reformation for the education. The corruption in education, we find that private coaching centers exploit the students for their profit. Gopal builds colleges through the library and political lead deals. Yes, we can see that in the character of Gopal, that he in a way anyhow wants the artist's attention and love. Yes, we know about this love triangle. He in a way not habituated with failures, but due to his class and lake merit, he don't won't be able to get admission in the college, though he choose the path of private coaching centers, where the leader, or in a way we can say the dealer themselves is not in a way used to with the failure. They only want profit and profit, so that they in a way increase the fee levels of the students for the education only, where the government sector were in a way in very low cost, giving very high standard of education, though the private coaching centers emerging a lot, just because of this kind of things. Moral dilemma, if we can see, then our main leader struggles between duty and political pressure. The similar way in Revolution 2020, Gopal chooses well over the values, but later on regrets it. Yes, finally conclusion. This presentation, in a way, in this presentation, I tries to explore the integrate relationship between education, corruption, and power through a comparative analysis of bedtime, the Hunter, and the Revolution 2020. Both works exposes how systematic corruption infiltrates the education sector, shaping the aspiration and moral dilemmas of individuals, while Revolution 2020 critiques the commercialization of education and ethical compromises made for success. Bedtime highlights the moral ambiguity within the law enforcement and the justice system by juxtaposing this narrative. My study raises critical questions about the whether true reformation is possible, or if corruption remains an inescapable space within the society. If we talk about learning outcome, that I understand how corruption distorts the purpose of education. Yes, analyze the clash between idealism and corruption in both the narratives. I don't know if I have to mention or not, but while I am taking my BA degree, someone suggests me that don't go for BA. It is not for you. You rather you can choose BCom or science. You have good enough percentage, and if you want BS degree, then I know, but individual person, they in a way give you the certificate of BS degree, so no need to go there. Just do whatever you want to do, and the certificate will provide it to you. And I said no, I want to go for the education, and I choose this path. Examine how the power influence education and societal structures. Also, I knew about this power of influence education and societal structure before taking the admission in MA. I had a fracture on my clavicle bone, and somehow I passed BA with the final semester of BA with this clavicle bone. And whoever comes to me for for asking my medical health, they were just told, just suggest me that your dad has very much connection with this university, so that is why you passed away, so, and I said no, I know my struggle, how I write the paper, how I learn overnight and pass myself. So this is kind of power of influence education and societal structure that we also find the reflect on the real world impact of the corruption in education and governance. And not last but not the least, the appreciate the role of literature and cinema in highlighting the social issues. Yes, here are some references that I have cited in text also, and further reading also that I have used. Yes, and thank you. If you have any question, feel free to ask in the comment section.
Ria, my question is that does the fate of Raghav and Sharnaya show that idealism in ineffective or that collective action is necessary for change?
Yes, Kushi, we can say that Raghav and the character of Raghav and Saranya in a way somehow reflects the idealism in this corruption of this corruption in education. Yes, and their idealism in a way, Raghav in a way he is very well allotted with his work of journalism. He is very honestly doing his work, but though he has to face somehow corruption. And Saranya also in the movie that we find, she in a way tries very hard to fight for that the corruption and the drugs legal or drugs business were going on in this school, but at the end she has to sacrifice her life. So in a way the change in a way is not in one particular person's hand. Yes, for change we have to work together, like it is in a way collective action that we needed. So yes, this is my answer. So thank you.
What is Saranya?
Saranya is in a way character of this movie. She
Acha, in this film, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So that was a good day. We have made some comments in between. So those things tomorrow you have to be careful about. And we hope that tomorrow last presentation will be there tomorrow. And we hope to see that everything will be okay. Some of you are making some mistakes, some errors in title or almost 90% of you are doing good now. Hardly 10% are making some mistakes. Let us see tomorrow without any comments or other thing. If everything is presented very well, it will be good. Tomorrow is the last day. Then we don't see any chance of improvement. Whatever level you have reached, you will be like that only. And normally it is very difficult to train the people when they become older now. So it is difficult. Once the habits we get of not learning, it is very difficult to unlearn that habit of not learning and relearn new things also. So tomorrow is the last day of your presentations. Okay? Wish you all the best for tomorrow. Okay?